1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So I will call this meeting to order. Happy New Year and welcome to the TTC Board's first meeting of 2026. The clerk has confirmed that quorum is present, and I will begin with the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Do any commissioners wish to declare a conflict of interest in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none, we will move on. We are meeting in the newly upgraded committee room 1 here at City Hall. I think we're the first to use it, so congratulations. Late last year, renovations to this room were completed. The upgrades, including improved accessibility for mobility devices, new audio-visual equipment, including microphones, monitors, and screens, enhanced acoustics, and a new glass partition separating the public seating gallery from the legislative meeting space. Committee Room 2, where the TTC Board typically meets, is currently undergoing similar upgrades. Before we begin the business of today, I would also like to recognize that today is Orthodox Christmas. This day is observed by many in Toronto and within the TTC community following the Julian calendar. On behalf of the board, we extend warm wishes to all who are celebrating. May the values of the season representing peace, generosity, and hope continue to guide our work and our service. We appreciate the contributions of Orthodox Christians employees, customers, and partners to the city and Toronto, and TTC. Today we'll be considering the TTC's recommended 2026 TTC conventional and Wheel-Trans operating budgets and the recommended 2026 to 2035 capital budget and plan, 15-year capital investment plan, and real estate investment plan update. I'm holding both items in my name. We will first hear from staff who will deliver a presentation on the reports before us today. After the staff presentation, the board will hear deputations on the budget, followed by questions and speaking. We will take a lunch recess from 1 to 2. I'll ask TTC CEO Mandeep Lally to introduce the presentation and reports before us today. Mandeep?
Thank you, Chair. Nice. First of all, good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year, if I haven't had the chance to personally meet each and every one of you. So I just want to open with a few words. So good morning, commissioners, and all that are gathered here today to go through the budget for 2026. As we gather to consider the budget for 2026, I want to acknowledge the significance of this moment for Toronto's transit system and the communities we serve. Our proposed budget is shaped by our commitment to safety, reliability, affordability, and long-term sustainability. These are the values that remain at the heart of our mission here at the TTC. For the third consecutive year, we are freezing fares, and in September, we will introduce monthly fare capping. This means frequent riders will pay no more than the cost of a monthly pass, making transit more predictable and accessible for everyone. We continue to support equity through the Fare Pass program and ensuring sustainable, substantial discounts for eligible customers. Our $3 billion operating budget supports service expansion, including the first full year of Line 6 and Line 5, and an increase in service hours to address congestion and major events like FIFA World Cup. We're also expanding Wheel-Trans to meet the rising demand and maintaining prior service enhancements focused on safety and cleanliness. In terms of governance, financial stewardship remains a priority, as it always has. We have achieved $87 million in cost savings and efficiencies due to the work the team have been diligently working through. And we are drawing on reserves to avoid fare increases. However, I must be candid about the challenges we face. The TTC continues to experience a structural fiscal imbalance driven by rising costs, lower than expected fare revenue, and slower ridership growth. We are increasingly reliant upon the city, subsidies, and reserve funds. But this year is about rebaselining and setting a path for long-term financial sustainability. And looking ahead, as I've made very clear and focused upon within the commentary of the board reviews, we are effectively a people business managing customers safely, reliably to the schedule in terms of where they need to go, how they're going to get there, and ensuring they do get there on plan and communicating that accordingly. Business aspect of it in terms of looking at our revenue sources coming in and going out and how we manage that more strategically for 2026, 2027 and beyond, hence the long-term fiscal sustainability aspect of it. And again, focusing on the business aspect of it, looking at in granular detail where we are more effective, where we are generating revenues and where we are not, and exploring those avenues in greater vigor than we have ever done before. Our 16.7 billion capital plan prioritizes a state of good repair, safety, and modernization, but significant unfunded capital needs remain, over 37 billion over the next 15 years. Without the predictable multi-level government support, we risk possible delays in critical infrastructure renewals. We are absolutely grateful for the city and the support in working closely with all levels of the government to secure sustainable funding for Toronto Transit future. We recognise the concerns raised by our stakeholders in reference to fare freezes, funding gaps, and project delivery efficiency. But let me assure you, the TTC is committed to responsible stewardship, ongoing efficiency measures, and transparent financial planning. We are also investing in service enhancements, accessibility, sustainability to attain and retain riders. And we are actively seeking new revenue opportunities with innovative solutions. Safety, reliability, and inclusion remain our guiding principles, as I highlighted earlier. Investments in green technology and facility upgrades are helping us meet Toronto's climate goals, and the Easy Access program is fully funded to ensure all subway stations become accessible. In closing, while the challenges are real, our commitment to the future, our transit riders, is unwavering. We will continue to advocate for the support and resources needed to deliver safe, reliable, and affordable transit for all. And with that, I'm pleased to introduce our Interim Chief Financial Officer, John Montigny, who will provide further details on the budget for 2026.
Good morning. Thank you, Mandeep. Good morning, Chair and board members. Happy New Year to everyone here. On behalf of the executives, I am pleased to present our recommended 2026 budget. Full on effort from the entire organization, but I would like to thanks folks in this room as well as those online. Josh and Lawrence's group providing information on our definitely service plan, and to the right of me, data guru, Mr. Eric, and the head of capital, Mark Del Vecchio. So let me start to provide you an overview of all the details in this budget and seek your approval for the 2026 budget. So this slide highlights what the 2026 operating budget delivers for our riders in the city. Every week, the TTC moves 1.3 million people across more than 6,400 kilometers of routes, supported by nearly 200,000 weekly service hours. Our network includes nearly 2,000 buses, 239 streetcars, 143 trains, with 206 battery electric buses advancing our sustainability goals, and as well for 2026, we'll be enhancing that number as well. Behind the service are more than 18,000 dedicated employees working to keep Toronto moving. These numbers reflect the scale and the impact of the TTC and underscore why continued investment is critical to maintaining reliability and affordability. Weekly service hours represent the max weekly service hours in 2026, budget to occur in fall one. Next slide. Key factors shaping our 2026 budget. Here are several factors. First, we aligned with board and the strategic planning priorities and advance actions from our 2024-28 corporate plan. focusing on reliability, safety, and customer experience. Second, we met city targets by limiting the subsidy-based increase to $91 million and restricting new investments to multi-year strategies that deliver measurable results. Ridership trends were another major influence. Based on our 2025 performance, we adjusted service hours for congestion and travel patterns, but made no provisions for growth due to revised ridership forecasts, as I will allude to in future slides. We also accounted for inflation and price pressures, including rising utility costs. We're up by 5.7% in 2026, adding an additional $5 million to the budget. Economic conditions drove fare revenue projections down to $0.44 billion, reflecting slower GDP growth and weaker employment trends. Finally, we prioritized affordability for riders while maintaining service stability. Instead of passing costs to customers, we identified internal efficiencies and balancing measures to offset the need for fare increase. Next slide. Now that we reviewed the key factors shaping the 2026 budget, let's look at the major challenges and risks ahead. These influence both operating and capital planning. Ridership growth. Post-pandemic ridership has stabilized, but growth is slow and tied to economic conditions. We've adjusted our 2026 estimates toward base our 2025 trends. Service reliability. Congestion and operational pressures remain. We've added 2% service hours to improve consistency within budget limits. Fare compliance. Fare evasion continues to pose a revenue risk. Ongoing investment in enforcement and technology is essential. Aging assets and SOGR backlog. Infrastructure and vehicles are aging, increasing reliability risks. The capital plan prioritizes SOGR, but needs remain significant. Next slide. As we look ahead to 2026, our priorities are focused on 5 key pillars aligned with the corporate plan. There's a lot on this slide. I won't go through every bullet point, but I just wanted to highlight some major points to address here. Building a future-ready workforce, continuing engagement initiatives, leadership development, and safety programs while embedding diversity and inclusion are a priority. Enhancing the customer experience, maintaining reliability, accessibility, and readiness for major events like FIFA World Cup. Modernizing and expanding transit, delivering electric buses, operating lines 5 and 6 for the first full year, advancing major capacity project to meet Toronto's growth. We continue to drive innovation and resilience, rolling out technology solutions that automate enforcement, strengthening emergency preparation, and support climate action through sustainability projects. And most importantly, ensuring financial sustainability, keeping transit affordable with fare freezes, fare capping, growing non-revenue, and securing long-term funding. Partnerships, we will continue to deliver significant savings with over $320 million achieved since 2019. These priorities set the stage for our 2026 budget, and we'll take a closer look at what that means for next year. Next slide. This slide highlights how the 2026 budget maintains affordability, reliability, accessibility for our customers while supporting system growth and modernization. Keeps transit affordable. As Mandeep alluded to, for the 3rd consecutive year, fares are frozen. An important step to keep transit accessible for riders despite inflationary pressures. We're also introducing fare capping. These measures ensure affordability and encourage ridership. Maintain service levels and enhance reliability. The budget sustains prior year service improvements, increased service hours, and delivers world-class service during major events like FIFA World Cup. These efforts aim to achieve the $426 million revenue rise in 2026. Operating lines 5 and 6. 2026 will be the first full year of service for Line 5 Eglinton and Line 6 Finch West. Again, the focus is on state of good repair. The budget prioritizes investments to keep the system safe and reliable and addressing aging infrastructure and vehicles through targeted state of good repair projects. We're advancing modernization capacity projects. We continue to move forward with major modernization initiatives, including technology upgrades and capacity enhancement to improve efficiency and obviously customer experience. We continue to support climate action and resiliency. The budget also supports climate by advancing projects that reduce emissions and improve system resiliency, including energy efficient systems, infrastructure upgrades to withstand extreme weather. Let's start with the big picture here. Next slide. The 2026 operating budget is designed to protect affordability, preserve service levels, and support system growth during a period of economic uncertainty and rising costs. This budget reflects our commitment to riders, keeping transit affordable, reliable, and ready for the future, again, while managing financial pressures responsibly. It protects affordability. As you can see, they're freezing fares for a third year in a row, and we're introducing fare capping. We're introducing fare capping, which limits monthly costs after 47 trips, making transit more affordable for frequent riders. These measures help ensure transit remains accessible for everyone. Adding service hours to maintain service levels and respond to change travel patterns. We're adding 2% more conventional service hours, bringing the total to 9.9 million hours. This increase manages congestion, supports major events, again, like FIFA World Cup, and ensures customer experience reliable service across the network. Again, we've increased demand for accessible transit to grow on the Wheel-Trans side. We deliver an estimated 4.4 million rides. That's an 8.6% increase over the 2025 budget. This expansion ensures we meet the needs of riders who rely on specialized services. Operates new rapid transit line, as we mentioned before. The budget supports the first full year of operations line 5 and 6. And just wanted to importantly note that the operating costs for these lines are fully offset by the provincial funding under the Ontario-Toronto New Deal Agreement, ensuring no additional burden on the TTC's 2026 operating budget. Sustained prior year enhancement. We are continuing improvements introduced in previous years, including peak capacity increases on line 1 and 2, enhanced safety and security measures, and making reliability and cleanliness pilots permanent. These initiatives strengthen the customer experience, ensuring consistent services. And most importantly, capturing efficiency savings. I wanted to highlight that the budget delivers $87 million in cost savings through expenditure reviews and efficiency measures that do not impact customers. Since 2018, we've achieved a total of $320 million savings, demonstrating our commitment to fiscal responsibility. Next slide. Now that we've covered the key priorities for 2026, I want to turn to the overall budget picture. The slide shows both where the money goes and where it comes from, giving us a clear view of how we fund our operations. Starting with the chart on the left, overall budget context, the gross operating budget for 2026 is $3.0 billion, up from $2.8 billion in 2025. That's an increase of $163 million, or 5.7% year over year, driven by service enhancements, obviously inflationary pressures, and the first full year of operating new rapid transit lines. Where the money goes by service, 93%, about $2.8 billion, supports conventional TTC service, including buses, streetcars, and subways. 7%, or $202 million, funds the Wheel-Trans, reflecting continuing growth demand for accessible transit. This allocation underscores our commitment to maintain reliable service while meeting accessibility needs. Moving over to the chart on the right side, let's look at the funding. Net subsidy, on the net side, the city subsidized increases by $94 million, moving from $1.39 billion in 2025 to $1.48 billion in 2026. That's a 6.6% increase year over year, which is essential to keep fares frozen and sustain service levels. Revenue cost ratio. The RC ratio remains at 42%, meaning fare revenue covers less than half of the operating costs. This highlights the importance of government funding to maintain affordability and reliability for all our riders. Where the money comes from, the funding source, just wanted to highlight that 58% of the budget is funded by external subsidies. $1.48 billion from the City of Toronto, $279 million from the Province of Ontario through the New Deal Agreement. This strong support from both governments is critical to advancing priorities like service, reliability, safety, and customer experience. The remaining 42% comes from the TTC's own source revenues, 35% from fare revenue, approximately $1.7 billion, the balancing from advertising, property income, miscellaneous revenues, Wheel-Trans fares, and reserve draws. The challenge for 2026 is how did we balance? The 2026 budget faced a $232 million pressure. This slide shows how we closed the gap and met the city's target. We started with $232 million in pressure, driven by inflation, prior year decisions, service adjustments, and lower fare revenue. Updated estimates reduced the pressure by $19 million, back up. There are lower fuel and utility costs, insurance savings, and service plan corrections. We implemented a $29 million accounting change by moving depreciation costs for short-life assets such as IT systems, non-revenue vehicles, and equipment from the operating budget to the capital budget. These assets typically have a useful life under 10 years, and this change aligns with the City of Toronto's standard practice while freeing up operating dollars without impacting service. We continued our WSIB long-term disability funding strategy, shifting from an accrual-based approach to cash flow method. This means we now budget based on actual claim payments rather than the full actuarial liabilities, reducing our non-cash expenses by $13 million and improving our accuracy and predictability. We've identified $35 million in base budget reduction through line-by-line reviews, commission-wide cuts, equivalent to 0.8% reduction in gross expenditures. We have achieved $10 million in efficiencies, including savings from rapid TO transit, priority measured, hybrid vehicles, energy retrofits, and IT improvements. Finally, we've applied a $35 million one-time reserve draw, leaving the required minimum reserve intact. After these balancing measures, we reduced our net budget target to $91 million, meeting the city's requirement. This increases to $94 million to account for the implementation of fare capping as a new affordability measure. In total, we delivered $87 million in sustainable reduction, bringing cumulative savings since 2019 to $320 million. Customer demand is a key driver of the TTC budget, so I'll be speaking about our demand and how it drives our revenue. It is the starting point for both ridership revenue estimates and service planning. Looking at 2025 year-to-date trends, weekly demand has plateaued compared to 2024 levels. This slowdown aligns with broader economic conditions, including a decline in GDP and job losses in the outer industrial areas, Etobicoke, New York, Scarborough, which drove bus ridership down by 6%. For context, in Q4 2024, weekly boardings were 16.1 million, as highlighted on the graph above. As you can see, streetcar was plus 1%, subway was 4%, saw modest growth in the downtown core due to return to office mandates. Our service plan and ridership revenue forecast is based on the mid-range estimate between these high and low scenarios. We are assuming a 1.3% increase, which translates to 16.3 million weekly boardings. This 1.3% increase is starting point for both the 2026 annual service plan and our ridership revenue forecast. Next slide. Let's look at our service hours. We changed from in 2026 to meet our operational needs and customer demand. The total annual service hours will increase by 2% from 9.8 million to 9.9, adding about 3,860 weekly hours. These additional hours support three key requirements: contingency for line 5 and 6, 2,313 weekly hours are built into the base to provide bus backup for LRT disruptions for 6 to 9 months for Metrolinx at Metrolinx request. This is fully funded by Metrolinx and offset by bus savings from the LRT opening, so there's no budget impact in 2026. After the contingency period, these hours will be redeployed to strengthen our routes. Operational needs, adding 2,710 weekly hours at a cost of $11.5 million for overnight streetcar service, e-bus reblocking, and adjustments for articulated bus retirements. These hours also fund the restoration of peak service on lines 1 and 2, implemented in the fall of 2025 to meet higher subway demand. Congestion management, we're adding 1,150 weekly hours at a cost of $2.3 million to address growing traffic congestion and schedule adjustments. Altogether, the 2026 service plan costs $13.8 million. Next slide. I'd like to look at ridership and fare revenue trends, which are the key drivers of our operating budget. Since 2022, conventional ridership has grown significantly, up nearly 100 million rides, from 318 in 2022 to 414 million projected for 2025. However, growth is slowing and recovery appears to be plateauing. For 2025, we budgeted $1.070 billion in fare revenue, but year-end projections are now $1.020 billion, a $50 million shortfall driven by weaker economic conditions and job market softness, as mentioned in the previous slide. Earlier in the year, our outlook assumed $1.097 billion in revenue based on a 2% GDP growth, but GDP forecasts have since dropped to 1%, reducing ridership expectations. Looking ahead, the 2026 budget assumes $1.045 billion in fare revenue, which is $25 million lower than our 2025 budget and $46 million below the prior outlook, reflecting ongoing economic softness. Our assumptions for 2026 include modest growth, GDP at 1.6%, employment up by 0.4%, adding about 2.6 million rides and 6.3 million in revenue. Return to office trends have not delivered the boost we anticipated. 2025 ridership is 94% of budget and 90% of prior year, so we are not assuming additional growth from these policies in 2026. Post-secondary ridership remains a challenge, with student pass sales down 50% year over year due to declines in international student permits. On the positive side, events and service times will help. We're all excited, well, at least I am. FIFA World Cup expected to add 2 million rides and $5 million in revenue. Line 5 and 6 openings will add 3.1 million rides and 7.8 million in revenue. Priority transit lanes launched in mid-2026 will add 0.6 million rides and 1.7 million in revenue. 2025 estimated fare compliance savings of $15 million are expected to be maintained in 2026. The average fare will hold at 2.47. And let's go into the next slide, the introduction of fare capping. The 2026 operating budget introduces fare capping, a major step in TTC's multi-year affordability strategy. Starting September the 1st, 2026, riders will pay per trip until reaching a monthly cap of 47 rides. After that, additional trips are free. On September 1st, 2027, the cap will drop to 40 rides per month, further improving affordability. This change eliminates the need for upfront monthly pass purchases, simplifies fare payment, and improves equity for low-income and transit-dependent riders.
Sorry, just to stop you for a second. To everyone having conversations, unfortunately, with the new acoustics, we can actually hear them, like even if you're being quiet. So if you could go outside or try to be super quiet, because it's actually becoming distracting. I'm not looking at anyone in particular. I'm just looking in your direction. Thanks. Continue.
No problem. I thought it was my voice, but that's good. Good to know. Adult, youth, and senior monthly passes will be phased out, while adult 12-month pass and post-secondary monthly pass will remain available. Fare capping also supports monetization by enabling open payment users to benefit from monthly pricing and aligns with fare integration initiatives like the One Fare program. For 2026, the estimated TTC revenue impact is $3.1 million, increasing it to $18.5 million in 2027 and $36.6 million annually for 2028 and onward. Next slide. Lines 5 and 6. The 2026 operating budget includes full-year funding for the operation and maintenance of Line 5 Eglinton and Line 6 Finch West, marking a major milestone in transit expansion. The total budget for these two lines is $179.5 million net, an increase of $77.9 million over what was included in the 2025 budget. This includes $52.2 million for Line 5 and $26 for Line 6, reflecting full-year operations. For budgeting purposes, we've assumed that Line 5 starts service in January, pending confirmation from Metrolinx. Line 6 officially opened on December 7th, 2025. These new lines will add approximately 0.6% to total TTC service hours, improving connectivity capacity across the network. Importantly, all costs are fully offset by the provincial funding under the Ontario-Toronto New Deal Agreement, which guarantees financial support through March 31st, 2027. This ensures that the expansion does not create additional pressure on the TTC's operating budget while delivering significant benefits to our riders. 2027 and 2028 outlooks. Looking beyond our 2026, the outlook for 2027-28 highlights significant cost pressures and the need for sustainable operating funding model. For 2027, the incremental pressures total $148 million, driven by $35 million for the reversal of our one-time reserve funding in 2026, our $30.8 million for anticipated service growth under the 5-year service plan, $14.7 million for fare capping changes as the monthly cap drops from 47 to 40, $9.8 million to annualized service investments made in 2026. Again, for 2028, pressures are projected at $96 million as a result of the fare capping at 40 rides, inflation, legislative impacts, and $35 million of additional server requirements, again, under the 5-year service plan. These figures represent minimum funding needs and do not include the impact of collective bargaining agreements, which expires in 2027 of March. Importantly, the expiry of the Ontario New Deal funding in 2027 would add $231 million pressure for 27, $49 million for 2028, bringing the total outlook pressure to $379 million in 27 and $145 million in 2028. These numbers underscore the urgency of securing long-term sustainable funding model to avoid service erosion if provincial funding ends. Now I'd like to pass the next few slides on to the head of capital, Mark Del Vecchio.
Thank you, John. Okay, so before diving into the CIP, it's important to note that the TTC has an expansive asset inventory required for the delivery of transit service, which is valued at more than $39 billion. At the highest level, these assets include rolling stock, structures, facilities, systems, linear infrastructure, and the bus fleet. Together, these assets form the backbone of our service delivery model. These assets have been integrated as one collective and interdependent system under one asset management plan, which helps prioritize maintenance, upgrades, and the required investments. The TTC's capital program is largely driven by the cost of maintaining these physical assets in a state of good repair. Now we turn our attention to the 2026 to 2040 capital investment plan, which outlines the long-term capital needs to maintain assets, support replacements, and expand transit capacity for future ridership. The CIP for 2026 has been updated to reflect refined estimates based on changes to timing of planned investments, capital planning progress made through the project lifecycle stage gating, estimate updates to account for economic factors such as inflation and market conditions, and emergent capital needs based on updated condition assessments and priorities. As a result, the CIP reflects an overall need of $54 billion, which is an increase of $615 million over the prior CIP. The SOGR backlog has also increased to $6.1 billion from $4.3 billion, driven by a better understanding of life cycle costs through the asset management plan, as well as fleet changes to the Green Bus program. However, TTC has still been able to address many of the items in our SOGR backlog needs with $1.73 billion incremental funding added to this plan, primarily for health and safety, legislative, and SOGR needs. The charts and tables here break down the $54 billion CIP by category on the left and by portfolio on the right. From a category perspective, consistent with last year's CIP, TTC's most significant needs do relate to state of good repair, valued at nearly $24 billion, followed by growth projects at $16.5 billion, and then service improvement projects at $12.4 billion. Given that subway assets make up the largest portion of the TTC's asset base, they also represent the largest investment required in the CIP at $26 billion. Aimed at renewing the subway system to replace and upgrade existing aging assets, as well as supporting future growth and expansion of the network in the long term. The second largest portfolio of planned investments relates to the TTC's bus and Wheel-Trans requirements at approximately $11.5 billion. Streetcar, facility, network-wide, and transform TO make up the remainder of the TTC's portfolio investments and are detailed here. Now we turn our attention to the 2026 to 2035 capital budgeting plan. So the information here summarizes key considerations when determining the recommended allocation of available funding to the needs that are identified in the CIP. Addressing state of good repair is essential for service reliability, which is why the TTC continues to place the highest priority on meeting health and safety, legislative, and state of good repair needs first. However, the scale of SOGR investment still required is crowding out opportunity to advance needed capacity enhancement investments to keep up with population growth and capture more ridership long term. This does not suggest that CIP requirements associated with growth and aspirational initiatives are not important, but rather are dependent on the base system being maintained to achieve the benefits of investment. Next slide. Of the $54 billion required investment identified in the 15-year CIP, over $16 billion is funded within the 10-year capital budget and plan. Of the total funded portion, over $11 billion has been allocated to critical health and safety, legislative, and state of good repair requirements, including incremental investments of nearly $1.4 billion highlighted here. This budget also funds key initiatives of the Innovation and Sustainability Strategy to improve resiliency, efficiency, and climate adaptation measures, and progresses business modernization initiatives to improve the tools, technology, and processes employed by the TTC. Next slide. Similar to the CIP overview, the charts and tables here break down the $16.7 billion capital budget and plan by category on the left and portfolio on the right. As mentioned previously, TTC's most significant needs relate to state of good repair, so funding has been allocated accordingly, followed by funding for service improvement and growth projects. For the portfolio breakdown, over 50% of project funding is allocated to the subway portfolio investments, with the next highest portfolios being bus and then streetcar. Also of note is that the first 5 years account for nearly $10 billion of the total funding, while the second 5 years total $6.7 billion, which reflects the constraints in funding available over the long term, as there is still over $21 billion unfunded in the 10-year window. Looking a little further into the capital budget and plan portfolios of investment, this slide highlights the capital plan submission's recommended funding split with some examples of projects included under each portfolio. Modernizing the subway and expanding capacity is a portfolio of investments planned for the renewing of the subway system to replace and upgrade existing aging assets and to support future growth and expansion of the network in the long term. The transforming and electrifying bus service portfolio aligns the TTC's bus fleet plan and service planning investments, reflecting necessary asset lifecycle replacement costs based on the age of the fleet, as well as the city's climate goals. The supporting a larger streetcar fleet portfolio in the TTC CIP includes investments to meet ridership demand, ensure consistent service delivery, and operational efficiency. In terms of facilities, the TTC has several that range in age from 1 year to over 100 years and play a critical role in supporting one or multiple aspects of the TTC's integrated network. These types of facilities include garages, yards, car houses, and various other buildings. Finally, the network-wide investment program does not support a specific mode, but similar to the TTC facility maintenance portfolio, it indirectly supports the integrated network of transit services with projects like IT systems or software and the wayfinding strategy. So the cash flow spending trend line for major projects, which are typically service improvement and growth projects, align with project deliverables, which result in peaks and valleys associated with each major project's multi-year delivery plan and associated spending. Conversely, ongoing state of good repair projects tend to be more steady state in nature, reflecting the annual implementation of needed repair and rehabilitation. By category, the 10-year capital plan allocates 63% of the $16.6 billion projected funding to maintaining the state of good repair. The profiling of state of good repair capital works over the 10-year period clearly shows a higher level of spending in the first half of the 10-year planning period. Spending peaks in 2028, but then begins to decline over the balance of the capital planning horizon, which is an indication of funding capacity constraints, not the capital investment needed, and also why the TTC's projecting growth in the state of good repair backlog. So the SOGR backlog is a reflection of the unfunded SOGR needs. The current projection for the backlog is estimated to total approximately $6.1 billion at the end of the 10-year planning cycle. While significant progress was made during the 2025 budget process, where incremental investments effectively reduced the projected backlog by 50%, and further investments have been made in this budget, offsetting escalations and additional requirements have further increased the backlog. These increases include the bus procurement programs, largely driven by unit cost estimate increases for the fleet, as well as fleet plan adjustments to account for the required service levels. Our streetcar, bus, and subway car overhaul programs as a result of fleet plan changes as well, requiring additional capital maintenance activities. And on subway track, where updated track assessments have identified new maintenance requirements that have accelerated asset replacement needs. With updates made for 2026, the 2026 to 2040 CIP has identified capital investment needs that now total $54 billion, over the next 15 years, of which $37.3 billion is unfunded. These unfunded capital investments amount to $21.3 billion over the next 10 years, with an additional $16 billion identified in the subsequent 5 years. The table here details these unfunded requirements by category and mode portfolio. While these amounts represent the overall need, it's important to consider the risks or foregone benefits of these investments are left unfunded. So effectively managing the accumulated state of good repair backlog is a critical strategic objective of the TTC to ensure that existing assets can support transit service delivery and achieve service outcomes. Attracting new riders and retaining customers' confidence in the system requires sustained investment in the base network's assets. This is foundational and a prerequisite to plans to expand and increase network capacity to capture new ridership long-term. Failure to invest in SOGR projects would impact asset reliability, and ultimately the quality of service and unplanned service interruptions would increase, leading to emergency maintenance requirements that are not budgeted, causing additional pressures on the operating budget. Without service improvement investments, TTC would miss opportunities to enhance the base system and achieve a higher level of service delivery and capacity. Potential efficiencies aimed at reducing operating expenses would also be lost. Lastly, there are growth projects designed to build upon the base system of assets. These types of projects provide a boost to the economy. Without investment here, there would be missed socioeconomic benefits as well as limited opportunity to attract new riders and increase revenue opportunities. All of the above, including the specific scenarios highlighted, suggest the continued need to address the structural fiscal imbalance and continue to advocate for a sustainable funding model for transit so these risks are not realized and the benefits are achieved. Now I'll pass it back to John for the wrap-up.
Thank you, Mark. To wrap up, here's an overview of the next steps, the 2026 budget process, and key milestones leading to the final approval. After the TTC Board approval, the budget moves to the city process. January 8th, the City of Toronto launches its public budget. 14 and 16, the Budget Committee reviews TTC's submission. Our date is January the 15th, our presentation. January 20 to 21st, public deputations provide some feedback. The 23rd, Budget Committee wraps up deliberations. The 2nd, Mayor's proposed budget is released. And finally, February the 10th, special City Council meeting for final approval. And the final slide, as we conclude this presentation, here are the key messages for the board to consider. We have prioritized affordability for riders while maintaining service stability. The 2026 budget freezes fares for the 3rd consecutive year and introduces fare capping to lower costs for frequent riders while sustaining service levels and prior year improvements that keep transit reliable and accessible. Instead of passing costs to customers, we've identified internal efficiencies and balancing measures to offset the need for a fare increase. These actions protect riders and preserve consistent service during a period of inflation, slow ridership recovery, and growing operational demands. Despite this, TTC faces a structural funding gap. I want to highlight this. The current revenue streams and cost controls cannot fully address rising pressures from inflation, aging infrastructure, and the expiring of key funding agreements. Without new solutions, fare stability and service reliability will be at risk, undermining the economic, social, and environmental value of transit for Toronto. Long-term sustainability requires predictable funding and intergovernmental partnership. A multi-year operating funding framework is essential to protect affordability, service levels, and support future growth. This is a critical moment for collaboration between the TTC, the city, the province, federal government to secure the transit system Toronto needs to thrive. In closing, the 2026 budget is an important step forward, but lasting success depends on building a sustainable funding model. Thank you, everyone, for your attention.
Thank you, John and Mark. We will now hear from the deputants on both the operating and capital budgets, beginning with Azad Memon, who's online. Not online yet? Okay. We will move to Josel Angelica Gerardo. Okay. Please go ahead. You have 5 minutes. There's a button.
Yes, there you go. Good afternoon, Chair Myers, councillors, and commissioners. My name is Giselle Angelica Gerardo. I'm a proud transit rider as a resident of Toronto Danforth and a worker both in Toronto Centre and Spadina Fort York. I'm speaking today in support of this budget that prioritizes affordability, reliability, and accessibility for all through the implementation of a fare freeze and a fare cap, as highlighted in the budget just presented. I'm gonna point out the obvious here. We are in an affordability crisis, and in this day and age, every dollar, honestly, actually every cent counts. Many people like me are working 2 or more jobs to be able to afford everyday and monthly expenses, which includes paying for the TTC. I don't drive or bike and simply don't want to. Therefore, the TTC is the only form of transportation I rely on every day. Ever since I was a child immigrating here and until now, I would use it every day to get to my multiple jobs, get groceries, run errands, meet friends and family, and so much more. If you add up all of these, hopping in and out of the bus, streetcar, and subway, it is quite a hefty amount of money that eats up in the budget. Let me walk you through how I budget transit costs to avoid paying for a monthly pass or committing to a 12-month pass without a possibility of cancellation. So a monthly pass is $156 divided by and then there's the $3.35, which equals to around 46 trips per month, which requires to be paid at the end of the month on top of rent and utilities payment. And honestly, that is not feasible for someone like me. So I typically go to work in person 4 to 5 days a week, which already equates to 36 to 40 trips a month. To avoid further additions to these trips, I have to consider the 2-hour transfer for groceries and errands to avoid paying another fee. Sometimes I even choose to walk multiple blocks just to avoid paying. I get my steps in, but at what cost, especially in the winter? So a fare freeze and a fare cap supports young people like me who are trying to simply make it work by living in a city like Toronto. We should be able to enjoy the city without constantly thinking about what we can afford and what we can live without. This is the city I love and want to live in. However, there's always a push for people like me to get out of the city and find somewhere actually more affordable to live in. I know that the city doesn't want that. I don't want that. We should use every opportunity we have to keep people in rather than push people away. A fare freeze and a fare cap will significantly impact us in the long run to stay in the city that we love. Again, I would like to reiterate my overwhelming support for the fare freeze and fare cap to ensure that folks like me continue being able to afford taking the TTC at a fair price, to keep the city equitable and fair for all. This will significantly and positively impact the quality of life for the millions of commuters that take the TTC. Let's continue to work together in continuing to make transit affordable, reliable, and accessible for all commuters. Thank you.
Thank you, Giselle. Does anybody have any questions? No, thank you very much. Azad, I understand you're online.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Azad, go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Great, thank you. Hi, my name is Azad Memon, and I'm a resident of Osman Malik's Ward 10. I'm here to ask the board today to support the TTC's budget being discussed today, in particular, the fare capping and fare freeze initiatives. Having been raised in Toronto for most of my life with 2 very busy working parents, the TTC has been one of the most vital services that the city offers. Over the course of my life, the TTC has served as access to school, extracurriculars, volunteer opportunities in high school, and early employment opportunities like youth job fairs. And now in my adult life, as we know, transportation to and from work, errands, and visiting family and friends. Fare freezes and fare capping. When I was a young teenager, I remember wondering, out of necessity, how long I could continue using it for despite being over the age limit. This was back when child tickets were still a thing. I also distinctly remember the first time being caught by a bus driver because I couldn't produce the year I was born that would make me eligible to use a child ticket. And I know growing up that I wasn't. And though now as an adult, I'm lucky enough to be able to pay for fare, me and my fellow residents struggle to make ends meet, and the cost of transport remains a prominent line item on their budget. For a lot of Toronto residents, including myself, the TTC serves as a means of connection to education, employment opportunities, and access to community and community resources. So today, I'm asking the board to support the budget as proposed, in particular, keeping in fare freeze and fare capping initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Azad. Does anybody have any questions for the deputant? No. Seeing none, thank you very much. Next, we have August Purnath from TTC Riders. Welcome, August. You have 5 minutes.
Hello, thank you. Happy New Year. My name's August, and I'm a transit user and resident of Ward 15. I'm also here as a member of TTC Riders. I want to say thank you for this proposed budget that makes some really big steps to make transit affordable for everyday working people in the city by freezing TTC fares and rolling out fare capping. I have never bought a Metro Pass in my whole life. When I was going to school during the week and going to work part-time back in first year, getting a Metro Pass would have made sense for me because I was spending $43 and up to $60, sometimes more every week on the TTC. And it can be unpredictable. When you're working part-time in retail, you get assigned random shifts in the middle of the week too, and you often end up spending 3 to 4 fares a day. So it would have made sense, but I couldn't afford it back then. These days I work full-time, but my job has me working in all sorts of communities across Toronto. Jane and Finch one day, Scarborough the other day, maybe all in the same day. And lots of traveling on the TTC. My monthly spend is unpredictable, and even though I can now afford a monthly pass, sorta, I never buy it because I don't know if I'll actually need it for the month. Fare capping is flexible, fare capping is consistent, and fare capping is fair for riders. In fact, a lot of people who rely heavily on the TTC, like me and a lot of deputants today, can't afford a pass even if it benefits them. It doesn't make sense to have a lower cost transit offered only to those frequent riders who have the money to afford it, while those who need lower cost transit the most are locked out by the high price of a monthly pass. This might be fine if you're running a business that profits off a subscription model like Netflix or Amazon, but this is public transit, it's not Netflix or Amazon. It's not a business, it's a service that we need, especially when there's no other option to get around. The fare freeze is also much needed. For decades, TTC fares have risen far above inflation, so fare freeze provides much needed relief for riders. Toronto's property tax, for comparison, for much of history, has been kept at or below inflation. That's one of the levers to fund transit. We need more levers to fund transit as well, be it upper levels of government or tools like the commercial parking levy. Some of you are city councilors, so I urge you to advocate and keep advocating for those tools and keep advocating upper levels of government for funding, especially operating funding. I also urge you to expand rapid TO transit lanes. We heard earlier from the staff report that it's very successful. We've already seen success on Dufferin and Bathurst. Transit that's stuck in traffic is expensive to run, so let's paint some new lanes this year. To conclude, I urge you to approve fare capping and the fare freeze, and I'm also pushing for, ideally the rollout of fare capping perhaps before September, and I definitely am happy to see it get down to 40 taps. That'll make a very meaningful difference in the lives of riders, and that'll be a real impact that people will feel. Thank you.
Thank you, August. Does anybody have any questions for August? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next, we have Jane Mercer. Welcome, Jane. You have 5 minutes. No,
I was on.
there you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
Good morning, Chair Myers and councillors and commissioners. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to this budget this morning. To each of you who has stepped up to this role to build a great transit system in Toronto, thank you. Thank you for your commitment, and I am here with many others to urge you to keep this going. We are thrilled with specifically 2 items in this budget, freezing the fares and capping the fares. That's going to be huge for families. Freeze the fares, cap the fares, and get our city moving. Freeze the fares because we have had way too many hits over the years where fares have gone up. And this is one of the most important things you can do. For a 3rd year in a row, we acknowledge that for the families and folks in Toronto that of all ages and corners of the city that are really struggling with affordability. To get people, we want to get people onto the TTC. We want to make it easier for them. We want to keep young people in this city. Speaking as someone who's tried to get around this city for the last 4 or 5 decades, sometimes in the workforce, sometimes not, it's exhausting. But I have the means, I have a car, I have to admit, I've used it, but I really want to see a strong TTC, and particularly for families. it helps to mitigate the effects of poverty in this city. It is a key piece, along with housing, childcare. The TTC is a key piece for families in this city. And it keeps costs down for everybody, so nobody has to feel like they're just supporting someone else. So freeze the fares, please. Keep that locked in. Cap the fares. We're very excited to see that fare capping is in this budget. A huge number of people can't possibly afford that $150 on day one of the month. If you're a family of 4, including a couple of teenagers, you can't afford $600 on day one at the beginning of the month. So we're very excited to see fare capping in this budget. It will be huge for the regular riders for the TTC and huge for our workforce, in particular, working families who may have 2, 3, 4 people in the household moving around the city. We want to keep this system affordable and reliable and the #1 mode of transport that you go to. And we want to keep our young people in this city. Our first deputant said, how do I afford to stay in this city I love? I want her to stay in this city she loves. I want young people to stay in the city they love. I don't want to be just, that city of old folks that can afford to be here. So help keep people in the city. Freeze the fares, cap the fares, and get us moving. We urge you, once you've done that, to promote the heck out of this fare freeze and fare capping. And along with fast, reliable service, we know you can really build the ridership in 2026 and get our city moving. We know that TTC really can be the better way, but you need to sell it, and you can't market a bad product. Now, this is not a bad product, but it could be a great product. Cap our fares at 43 rides and get everybody's attention, plaster it on the back of the buses so that the car drivers also see it. For many years, I was advocating for childcare, and I got to thank those that I see around the table who stood up for childcare and showed leadership in this city when we couldn't get other levels of government excited. Your leadership really invigorated people across the country, and now we have a provincial government and a federal government who finally get that childcare is a major piece of supporting our city, our workforce, our populations. So thank you very much, and we will take it along with you to Premier Ford, who wants people back at work 5 days a week. He should be supporting this fare capping too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jane. Any questions? No, thank you very much. Next, we have Zoe Nicolidis, TTC Riders. Zoe, go ahead.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Zoe Nicolidis, and I am a member of TTC Riders, as well as a graduate student at the University of Toronto. I'm going to be speaking in support of the proposed fare freeze and the introduction of fare capping. So as a grad student, the last day of the month is a really good day for me because it's when I receive my base funding payment from U of T. For a few hours, I'm able to feel financially secure. The next day, that feeling is gone. After paying rent, I've already overspent my monthly funding, even before utilities, groceries, and living expenses. On top of that, currently having to pay an upfront cost of $128.15 for the monthly transit pass makes the beginning of the month really stressful, unpleasant, not just for me, but for a lot of university students in the city of Toronto. Fare capping would help spread these costs out. Instead of having to calculate at the start of the month whether it's worth it, the monthly pass, I could simply take transit as I need it and know my costs won't exceed that amount. That predictability would remove a significant source of anxiety. Most cities of the world have some kind of single fare discount for university students, not the TTC. This means that us students who have no to limited income are paying the same amount as the corporate finance bros who are earning like $2 million a year. That's actually insane when you think about it. I pay the same amount that Drake would pay if he was in the city. On top of tuition, rent, and basic living costs, we also have to worry about how we'll get around the city. Fare capping is a step towards fairness because it removes the upfront cost barrier and protects frequent riders with low to unstable incomes. Most of you in this room are in a different phase of life than me and have real adult jobs. Congratulations. You get to earn a stable income. As you consider the proposed budget, I urge you to imagine relying on the TTC to live your life while having little to no income. Whereas to some of you, a fare increase might just be numbers on a document, for many of us, it's actually a massive barrier to living our best possible lives. A fare increase for many means foregoing social events. It means choosing to walk for the cold in hours. It means fearing your credit card will decline. Life in Toronto is already unsustainably expensive, especially for students. Measures like fare freezing and fare capping make a big difference in whether people can participate fully in city life. I urge you to support these measures as you consider the 2026 budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next, we have Julia Campbell-Such. All right, Julia, go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Can you hear me now? Oh. Hi, good morning. I'm Julia Campbell-Such. I live in Ward 11. I work part-time at an arts institution, but I also own and run a small business with a studio workshop in Ward 9. I'm here today to ask the TTC Board to keep the TTC affordable by implementing a fare freeze and a proposed fare cap. I don't drive, so I rely on the TTC to get to work and to run my business. I take the TTC to visit clients all over the city, but some months are much busier than others. I also ride the TTC to pick up supplies. I'm that person you see on the subway carrying all my tools or wrestling some big board of wood that I need for a job. But again, some months are busier than others. I don't always know in advance how many times I'll need to take the TTC or how many times my 2-hour travel window will run out. I love what I do, but my business runs on a shoestring budget. It's new and things will get better, but I'm just starting out. I can't afford to waste money on a monthly pass unless I'm sure I'm going to use it enough times for it to be worth it. With a fare cap, I'll have more flexibility and I'll be much more likely to use the TTC over a taxi or a rideshare. I'm also here to ask for a more reliable TTC. We need funding to install and expand rapid TO dedicated lanes and address bunching and gapping on more routes. When I'm meeting with clients, I can't be late, so I often leave much earlier than I need to just in case things don't go as planned, which they often don't in the TTC. This wastes valuable time that could be spent working in my studio. I've spent 4 hours on transit for a half-hour meeting, stuck in traffic on the Bathurst bus, or waiting for a streetcar that never comes. Unreliable transit wastes my time and slows my business down. I know the solutions exist, we just need to fund them. I'm asking you to implement the fare freeze, bring in a fare cap before September, and expand the fare cap from the equivalent of 47 rides to the equivalent of 40 or less. I'm also asking you to fund the installation of rapid TO dedicated lanes to expand this program to more routes and expand measures to address bunching and gapping so that buses and streetcars arrive and get me where I'm going on time. Thank you so much for listening and for being here today.
Thank you, Julia. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Sachs?
I just wanted to say thank you. I think this is your first time here.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Congratulations, we appreciate it. Certainly you spoke very well about why the fare cap is important. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Pranitha Radhakrishnan. Pranitha? No. Okay. Next, we have Adam Roy Cahoon on video. Adam, are you there?
Um, hey, thanks for letting me speak today.
Thank you,
The
Adam. Go
main
ahead.
thing I want to speak about is what is actually missed in this budget. Not giving them much money. There is not much talk of wayfinding at all in this budget. There is a little bit in the capital, I did notice, but still, and obviously, Wheel-Trans has betrayed looking at opening the new division, and I thank you at actually putting more money in Wheel-Trans. But one of the reasons why there is a lot of fear and intrepidation of using the regular system is wayfinding. I know there are pilots, I know that hopefully money will come soon, but for you to not even mention that it's on a wish list is disappointing. The second thing is, I know you're gonna say it come from the city, but the fact that after you turned off the Wi-Fi down in the subway, and it was encouraged to look at other opportunities to put Wi-Fi on transit property for the use of the disenfranchised and people that still needed it. There is nowhere in your budget, nor is it anywhere in the document that it's a friendly request to the Toronto City budget. I think you're hoping that the community, being as disenfranchised as it is, will forget about the fact that it's like letting the pop companies turn off the water fountain in name of them having more sales. So it's these few things that I really think will help make it so even though you're not supposed to give much money for these things, still having the request in the document makes it easier for the city when I go to dispute at the budget, because the city can turn around and say, well, the TTC didn't really ask for it, so maybe they don't actually need it. And then it will be a back and forth. And when it comes to, thanks for being clear that there are budget issues. But I think you need to have an open public dialogue. And the one way that it seems to get the government's attention is talking about radical revenue tools. Start talking about them, then Doug will probably get excited and not want to do any of these revenue tools and might send some money our way to actually hush us up. So these are the things that will have to be done. And and maybe also be more frank. There are loads of most of the people you're deputing are loyal transit people. If you want us to start talking to our MPPs and our MPs and other people about these issues, let us know. We'll be happy to knock on their doors and ask for some of the things on your wish list. We just need to know what is actually wanted and needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Does anybody have any questions for the deputant? Seeing none, Adam, I also have you down for the capital budget. Do you want to make another deputation? You're
I thought we were making them together, so I basically put all my speaking in one deputation. So I thank everyone, and I will be listening to the rest of the meeting. But enjoy your day.
Thank you very much, Adam. Okay, so next we have Andrew Pulsifer from TTC Riders.
Cool new digs, by the way. Nice new room. Happy New Year, everybody. Oh, I don't like this, though. I can't see Councillor Mallow. How's it going? The happy TTC Budget Day, everybody. My name is Andrew Pulsifer, and I work for TTC Riders, which you've heard a lot from us today. We're fighting for a more affordable, reliable, and accessible transit system. I'm also a regular transit user, of course, and a resident of Ward 9, Davenport. I'm speaking, of course, in favor and support of the affordability measures in today's budget, specifically the fare freeze and implementation of fare capping. When I took this job in April, I sacrificed the usual 10 pounds that I would lose in the summer by taking out my bike and kept it in storage to only take transit. And I looked at my bank statement the other day in preparation for this debate, and I calculated in May I tapped my debit card 52 times. 52 times I was charged 52 times. You know what I didn't do? Buy a monthly pass. Do you know why I didn't? Because I forgot. The first of the month came, and I just didn't remember to buy the pass. By the time I remembered at the end of the weekend, it was already too late. It was like 4 or 5 days into the year, and I just completely forgot. So I'm sure looking at the data, there are some months where I maybe wouldn't have taken transit 47 times. Maybe I got sick and stayed home for a bit. Maybe I took a week-long vacation. Fare capping allows flexibility. And we all know the adage that in transit, flexibility is freedom. So on behalf of all forgetful oafs across the city, I urge you to implement fare capping. We all know that the TTC has a ridership growth problem, and affordability measures like a fare freeze and fare capping are some of the best tools that we have to win people back onto transit. Reliability is the other one, and I do hope this board will continue to invest in all methods of transit to make sure that everyone taking it knows that it can be relied upon, that their bus and their streetcar will come on time. The measures proposed in this budget are bold steps forward towards a more affordable transit system, and frankly, I'm proud of all of you for putting these measures forward. And I'm urging all of you to support these measures. I urge you to, I'm a transit advocate, so do all of them faster. Do all of them lower the cap as much as you can. I'm gonna ask you to do that as a transit advocate. But just know that, future Andrew will be grateful when he forgets to buy a monthly pass, when he doesn't have to forget to buy a monthly pass anymore, and just notices that he doesn't have any more charges on his debit card. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Andrew. Does anybody have any questions for Andrew? Seeing none, thank you very much. I'll go back to Pranitha. I believe you're online.
Hello, yes.
Great.
I am online.
Great, okay. Welcome, you got 5 minutes, please go ahead.
Great. So, hi, I'm Pranitha. I live in Scarborough Rouge Park, and more specifically in Malvern. I'm a transit rider, and I pretty much exclusively use the TTC to get around. I want to join today and speak to express my strong support for decisions that help make the TTC more affordable and reliable, and in particular, the fare freeze, fare capping, as well as prioritizing the planning and development of the rapid TO bus lanes along Finch Avenue East. The affordability crisis is something me and my family feel intensely. I'm a recent graduate of university. My parents both have disabilities and are unable to work. So just to give some context of like I'm one of many residents, right, in Toronto who really feels that affordability crisis. I really feel that pinch of increasing grocery prices, of trying to figure out a way to pay bills every month. And frankly, I'm grateful that I have the TTC that I can rely on to get around and do what I need in the city. And so decisions like the fare freeze help immensely during this affordability crisis. Knowing that the fare is remaining the same during this year and hopefully next year as well is something that, frankly, it makes a big difference for residents such as myself. And when it comes to living in Malvern, I feel that Malvern is a relatively underserved portion of the city when it comes to transit options. It takes a while to get to the bus stop. It takes a long time for these buses to show up. And in particular, I go to work in North York, and I rely on the bus routes along Finch Avenue East. Um, what's a commute a commute to my workplace that takes about 30 minutes by car or 25 minutes by car takes 2 hours, sometimes via using the TTC. I feel that the development and prioritizing the rapid TO bus lanes along Finch Avenue East is incredibly important. So just to reiterate, I think that for the TTC to become more affordable and reliable, especially for this residents of Toronto that really need to use it and really regularly use it, prioritizing things like the fare freeze and hopefully keeping the fare freeze around for this year as well as next year, keeping that fare capping in September and possibly moving it up would be really important. And finally, serving the residents of North Scarborough by implementing rapid TO along Finch Avenue East is incredibly important. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Pranitha. Any questions? No, thank you very much. Next, we have Philip Panatesco, TTC Riders.
Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead, Philip.
So good morning, members of the committee. My name is Philip Panatescu. I've been an on and off volunteer with TTC Riders since 2023 after Line 3 derailed. And I'm here to discuss item 12.2, specifically about ensuring that the board members endorse a fare freeze for 2026, as well as to accelerate the implementation of fare capping. Since moving out again, inflation has been the biggest limit on my ability to feed myself, keep myself warm, and get around the city. Cost of living has skyrocketed for Canadians in the past 4 years. Only last month, grocery prices have had the largest increase since December 2023. In 2024, Food Banks Canada's Hunger Count report indicated a rise in users of almost 2 million Canadians. That is a 30% increase since 2023. According to the Street Needs Assessment Survey, between 2021 and 2024, the number of homeless people in Toronto has doubled. A fare increase is the last thing Torontonians need right now. Over the past 3 decades, Toronto's fare costs have risen almost twice the rate of inflation. Low-income riders remain transit-reliant despite service cuts. A fare increase is an active choice to punish the most loyal customers of the TTC. The TTC estimates that a 25-cent raise in fare could remove about 5.5 million current riders from the system. This is from July 2025. Cost plays a major role in retaining and attracting riders. The success of New York City's congestion tax is also a great answer to the question of how will we fund this? In its first year of existence, it has generated $550 million in net revenue, allowing the MTA to proceed with $15 billion in transit improvement projects. The City of Toronto is presented here with an historic opportunity to ease the burden of an insanely high cost of living for the over 1/3 of Toronto residents who are transit riders in a time of massively rising inequality. Public transit is supposed to be the better way for people to get around, for everyone, not just transit riders. When people choose to take transit instead of driving, there is less car traffic for drivers. When people choose to take transit instead of driving, the decrease in congestion allows streets to become safer for pedestrians and cyclists, safer for children and the elderly. When people choose to take transit instead of driving, the air is made cleaner and the planet is made cooler. Why would the city punish people who are choosing the better way to get around for everyone? Freeze the fare and cap the fares at 40 taps, not 47, and let's do that this year, not 2028. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Does anybody have any questions? No, thank you very much. Next, we have Joe Crabe, online. Joe, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, go ahead.
Excellent. Hello and good morning. My name is Joe Crane. I am a transit user and a resident of Ward 4. Thank you for bringing forward this budget today. Like many others, I am very happy to see a fare freeze continuing and the start of monthly fare capping, continuing to make the system affordable to riders like myself. This is also the first year that TTC has created a full wayfinding strategy to improve the signage and information in the system, and the beginnings of that are recognized here in this budget. Having dedicated capital and staffing for wayfinding implementation is a great first step. However, it is troubling to me that only $3.9 million of this plan is funded of the $200 million over 15 years. With the vast majority of the wayfinding strategy for the future going unfunded, this risks having the well-conceived and holistic strategy reduced to the piecemeal and half-completed mess of information that we currently have today. A pilot project that never ends, the nice idea that never got off the ground. If the TTC is committed to growing ridership, which is currently flattening, and getting the accompanying increase in fare box revenue, then good wayfinding that allows new and returning riders to navigate the system with ease is a necessity. If we are going to bring people back to transit, it's very important that we don't turn them away by confusing them at the front door. Effectively communicating how our system works, when the next vehicle is arriving, where it is going, and clearly notifying disruptions and diversions are all critical parts of the rider experience that we need to get right. Funding the wayfinding strategy into the future will significantly improve how riders interact with the TTC as our transit map continues to grow. So while I support the board's adoption of the budget as proposed, I highly encourage the city to continue strongly advocating to the province and federal governments for reliable and stable funding for our transit system, as well as the city to strongly consider alternative revenue tools, such as a commercial parking levy for funding into the future to allow things like the wayfinding strategy to grow and continue to be funded into the future. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions for the deputant? No, thank you very much. Next, we have Fawad Aga, TTC Riders. Welcome, Fawad. You got 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Fawad. I'm a resident of Ward 11, a student at U of T, and a placement student with the TTC Riders. So the 2026-2035 capital budget and plan makes one point very clear. The TTC is doing the responsible thing by prioritizing safety, legislative requirements, and a state of good repair. Allocating 63% of the 10-year capital plan to maintaining existing assets reflects the reality we are in, however. Without reliable signals, vehicles, power systems, and facilities, there's no room or capacity to improve or expand service, especially when we're expecting a whole new line to be opened this year. I want to briefly step away from the numbers and just speak from personal experience. I do want to commend the TTC. I've already noticed tangible service improvements. Even on my way here to City Hall, I was pleasantly surprised that after missing on trains on both lines 1 and 2, which is usually a frustration, I actually was pleasantly surprised to see that within roughly 2 minutes, I was able to board another train and get here on time. I also want to commend the board for expanding Rapid TO through transit-dedicated lanes on corridors such as Dufferin and the street I live on, Bathurst. I've already seen that in the portions that Bathurst has been painted with the transit priority lanes, there's been noticeably better transit, especially for streetcars. Dufferin I haven't seen yet, but I'm excited to go visit once it does clear up. And I would also want to commend its commitment to implementing strong signal priority. This is an absolute necessity. We have seen time and time again in cities in Europe that they have implemented transit priority in cities as small as Nice and as large as Paris, and it's yielded tremendous numbers. These measures are critical because they deliver meaningful reliability gains. Even within tight budget restraints, they're low costs, and they really do help the people who use them. And we also have over 1 million riders every weekday as seen in the presentation. So imagine the amount of people that this is helping. However, one area that definitely deserves more attention, in my opinion, is the wayfinding. While it does boost my ego when I show my friends around the city and try to help them navigate our jungle of a transit system, inadequate wayfinding directly affects service efficiency, dwell times, rider stress, particularly for visitors and infrequent users. And with the amount of people we're expecting for the FIFA Men's World Cup, this issue becomes really urgent. We don't want people pinging back and forth on streetcars, not knowing which directions they're going. And they actually need to know where they're going, especially when they're try to attend games that they paid so much money to attend in both transit costs and the actual ticket prices. Right, and so the TTC riders have demonstrated in the King Station action not long ago that relatively simple, low-cost measures can significantly improve navigation across the system, especially within streetcars. And I strongly encourage the board to treat wayfinding as a core operational investment, not a secondary concern. Just to note, it's still really difficult to know which way you're going on when you're on the streetcar, especially people who don't know the reference points. I myself take the Bathurst streetcar a lot. I know what Exhibition is, and I know what Bathurst Street Station is. A lot of people don't. They don't know what that means relative to the cardinal points on the map. And yeah, so moving on, just very briefly, the capital plan identifies nearly $54 billion in required investment, with roughly 37 billion currently underfunded. And that gap is not an abstract number. It's not a fictional thing. It translates directly into service reliability issues that riders are experiencing today. And I do want to commend the city and the TTC for trying to protest to the government for more funding. We are fighting an uphill battle. Anyone who's read the federal budget knows that the public transit fund is no longer a thing. It's now lumped into another fund. So public transit has to fight with other infrastructural projects to lobby for funds, and that's not really good for us as transit riders. However, we do need to fight our way to make sure that we have a space, because everyone knows that investing in transit does yield economic benefits. It's not a fiction, it's not a story, it's something that we've seen time and time again. And yeah, so in closing, the capital plan is responsible, restrained, and necessary. I do support it. I do support things like fare capping. However, I do wish to see that less fares are included, are part of the fare capping. I'd rather it be 40 than 47 or more. But other than that, yes, wayfinding is really important, and I wanted to thank the TTC for its hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Sachs.
You mentioned the pop-up signage at King Station. I just wanted to encourage you, if you've got specific suggestions for minor changes at the stations in my ward, please let me know.
For sure. Thank you. Yeah. Would you like me to answer now or? I will. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final deputation is from Chloe Tangpong Prush. There you are, Chloe. Chloe, go ahead. You got 5 minutes.
Good morning, members of the TTC Board. My name is Chloe Tangpong Prush. Thank you for having me. I am a volunteer with TTC Riders, an urban planning student at Toronto Metropolitan University, and a resident of Ward 12, Toronto St. Paul's. So I'd like to bring your attention to the wayfinding line item in the capital investment plan to give some context to what my colleagues previously spoke on. The board approved the wayfinding strategy back in October, and in it, the strategy acknowledges that the signage system is confusing, outdated, and woefully inconsistent. And the goal stated was to bring the wayfinding system up to standard, follow international best practices, and create a cohesive roadmap for how we can improve the navigability of our transit system for all riders. And there is so much work that needs to be done. 61% of signs in the system are outdated. Not a single station in the network meets the standards that we have already set, and all surface transit stops currently exist in a low information environment, and the vast majority do not have live tracking for next vehicles when your next bus or streetcar will show up. And we also need to build institutional capacity within the TTC to improve wayfinding. As it currently exists, we just don't have the capacity to do the work that needs to be done. And fully funding the wayfinding strategy in the CIP will buy you a lot. Currently, $3.9 million of the strategy is funded, but over $200 million is needed over the next 15 years. So hopefully the money will buy upgraded signage at 3 stations as a pilot, although retrofitting all stations will cost $141 million, and also piloting 50 digital passenger information displays at surface stops. Over 2,000 are planned over the next 10 years. So we have some questions. Of the $3.9 million currently set aside, will all of the year one pilot plans outlined in the strategy be able to be implemented? And also, does the board have a plan to meet the total unfunded requirements of $200.9 million? And that may sound like a lot of money, but it is an absolute bargain. It's a drop in the budget for what it can buy. It isn't low-hanging fruit, and it's an easy win. I'd like to stress that wayfinding is not a nice to have, and it is a necessity. Good wayfinding is a matter of accessibility. It allows everyone, regardless of ability, to use the system, and it'll boost ridership for new or occasional users who currently feel too daunted by the existing system to navigate it. And it's especially important in the lead up to the FIFA Men's World Cup, as my colleagues have stated. The eyes of the world will be watching. We do not want tourists to get lost. We want them to be able to take the better way. I'd also like to bring your attention to another line item in the capital investment plan, the platform edge doors. I'd like to point out the big fat zero in the funded column. If the board recalls, back in June, you received an item for a proposal to start a pilot project to design and install platform edge doors at TMU station. This would have been a massive improvement for safety. TTC Riders has been advocating it for years now, and it would have been a good test run for how we can implement platform edge doors on the rest of the system when that funding becomes available. So the board ended up deferring this item to the Strategic Planning Committee with the reasoning that it was not funded in the existing capital investment plan and that the Strategic Planning Committee should look into funding it for 2026. And that doesn't seem to have gone anywhere. 2026 is here upon us, and it's still a big fat zero on that line item. Councillor Matlow, I recall that after the meeting you stated that you didn't want the issue to go to committee and wither and die, and that appears to be exactly what happened. So many questions there to be answered about where that pilot project ended up going. In concluding my statements for today, I just want to reiterate what my colleagues have been saying over the past bit. There is much good that will come from this budget, both the capital and the operating. I think that's a result of all of the hard work that staff and TTC Riders has done over the years. The real impact coming from fare capping. It's small steps, baby steps, but it is the first of what really should be expanded into a larger fare capping project. And also the fare freeze, which will do a lot for the riders across the city that are already struggling with affordability. We are not out of the woods. Stable funding is still needed, and we'll continue to advocate for that from higher orders of government. But we need to look into the options that are already on the table and are available to us, such as commercial parking levy, a small fee that can be levied to large commercial landlords of large parking lots to raise reliable operating funding for public transit. Thank you so much for your time today, and I am happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Chloe. Does anybody have any questions for Chloe? Oh, go ahead. Okay, go.
Wow, look at how this works. Incredible. Chloe, thank you very much for your very thoughtful comments and your advocacy. You just sparked a question at the last line of your entire deputation with respect to the commercial parking levy. While we are quite rightly calling out the provincial government to be a partner again in providing not just ad hoc funding, but sustainable, predictable funding for both capital and operating. You mentioned that Toronto should be using what's within our means to be able to also assist in providing that. Do you believe that the City of Toronto should still move forward with a commercial parking levy to dedicate those funds toward transit?
Through the chair, definitely yes. It is one of the things that with the provincial legislation is already available to us. We should be pursuing every avenue possible, especially since we are drawing a lot of money from our reserves, and we continue to try to find savings, but eventually those reserves will run out, and we are facing a lot of pressures, a state of good repair, and a need to expand service, increasing congestion. This is one of the things things that will allow for, large corporations such as, big shopping malls, a Cadillac Fairview, these massive landlords that could maybe help just a little bit to get people to where they need to go. If you think about these malls with large parking lots, Yorkdale Station or Don Mills Station already funnel a lot of riders to these malls. If they could just chip in just a little bit to help ease the pressure on everyday Torontonians who are already struggling to get by on the existing system and are already struggling with paying their fares. So definitely, yes, it is something that the city should continue to pursue, implementing it, including designing the necessary steps that are needed to analyze all the parking lots across the city. So it's something that we need to keep on our mind. It's something that the board should be trying to pursue.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bravo?
Thank you. I'm just going to follow up on the commercial parking levy piece and just say that I was not elected when TTC Riders and Toronto Environmental Alliance started to deliberate this, and I was part of those conversations. However, as a councillor, I was disappointed to hear that there were some challenges with implementing the commercial parking levy. Have you had conversations with Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, which I understand, and I'll ask staff about this, but that there is a provincial piece that is not really for the TTC to do, because I don't believe that the TTC or this board has the capacity to lead something like that. And on the other side, for the City of Toronto, we are not able to create such a category or initiate something like that without the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation's piece. That's what we were told by staff. Has there been any kind of further conversations around that piece?
Through the chair, to the best of my knowledge, I am not sure. I will have to defer that question, but TTC Riders is happy to follow up with your staff on this issue.
Yeah, I'll be asking staff at TTC.
Sure, we can talk after.
Thanks.
Thank you. Is that it? Thank you very much, Chloe. Okay, so now we'll bring it in committee to ask questions of staff. First, I have Commissioner Osborne.
Okay. I've got quite a few. So I am, just to preface some of my questions, I'm a little bit concerned about the level of financial risk in this budget. And I think it's pretty safe to say that nobody involved in transit here or anywhere else takes any joy raising fares. So with that said, I just wanted to ask a few questions so that we can get some context on some of the measures proposed in this budget. So first thing, can you clarify for me, John, the history of the fare increases in the last 5 years? Am I right that we have had no fare increases except for 1 10-cent increase on cash fares in 2023? Is that correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
So our basic adult fare is $3.30. What would the fares been if we had done like an inflationary, just keeping up with inflation? What would the fares have been if we had done let's call it modest inflation-attached fare increase?
Through the chair, directionally through inflation, approximately around $3.60 to $3.65, in that range.
Okay. And do you have any idea what other jurisdictions have been doing with fare increases over this same period?
Yes, we do. So we've looked at other agencies. Mississauga My Way is at $4.50. They've increased it from 2025, 25 cents. Ottawa Transport is at $4.15. They've increased it by 10 cents. The Winnipeg Transit has also increased. Burlington Transit has also had an increase. MTA in New York has also increased their cash fare as well. So across the board, these agencies have all increased their fares.
Oh, okay. Next line of questions, I'd like to talk about the upcoming funding crisis. Well, I'm calling it a crisis. I don't know if anybody else agrees with me. I think you kind of indicated you were a little concerned about this. So I am a little bit worried about what I view as the short-term focus of this budget. So if we look out to 2027, which is next year, you reviewed the numbers. We've got about a $380 million hole to fill next year, which doesn't include any salary. These are sort of existing commitments that we have. Doesn't include any labor and salary increases, which we always have, so I think we should at least expect it. And then the following year, there's a further $145 million shortfall. Again, no wage-related increases there. So that puts us at about 450-ish million next year and pretty close to 600 million. This is operating money, by the way, in 2028.
Correct. Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, so one of the main issues that we have as a board is to manage risk. And the only indication of any sort of plan that I saw in the material that we got was a hope that we would get operating monies, which we do get from the provincial government right now, inadequate to fill the hole that we have, but nonetheless, we do get it. So the plan, as far as I can see, relies on them chinning up again.
That's correct, through the chair, that's correct.
So there are no other measures contemplated to address.
There are other measures.
Okay.
Mandeep can speak to them, but we continue to monitor our discretionary expenditures. We're looking at our line-by-line expenditures. We've identified efficiencies, as we mentioned, in 2019 to now 320. There are some opportunities. We have a revenue growth strategy and non-fair revenue strategy, which we'd like to bring back next year to the SBC committee meeting and how we can grow. There are significant pressures, as you alluded to, and we do need the long-term multi-level funding support strategy. Obviously, we cannot do this on our own. This is a theme that's happened over the past couple of years, if you've been aware of, that we need municipal, provincial, federal to ensure sustainability of service and operations.
So if we had to make up a hole of 400 million next year with just a rate increase, a fare increase tool, what would that look like? I'm just trying to get some context on the impact that this issue may have on our customers.
So I'll quote the number you said through the chair. If we had to generate the 378 million or 79 million that you've alluded to, we'd have to do a fare increase of about $1.90.
$1 how much?
$1.90.
Oh my God, okay.
The hole.
Okay.
A 57% increase.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Jagdale.
Thank you, Chair Myers. Thank you all for the presentations. It was a fascinating read. A couple of questions, some lowball ones. Does the 87 million, that's not inclusive of the 35 million draw, right? No.
Sorry. Through the chair, that is the 87 million, that's sustainable efficiency outside of the 35 million draw.
Okay, you're calling it a sustainable efficiency as in we're going to also have $87 million worth of cost savings next year?
Sorry? These are permanent for 2026.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of that 87 million, it looks like 30% of that is really the depreciation policy change.
That's correct.
So the realism behind getting that same value next year is probably low.
Correct.
So
through the chair, that's correct.
This $87 million in cost savings is primarily just a sort of a 1 year.
It's a permanent for 2026.
Permanent impact for 1 year.
Correct.
Okay. Do we know how many Torontonians are eligible for the Fare Pass program, that discounted Fare Pass that we offer? And do we know what the uptake is currently?
I don't currently have that stat. That is with the City of Toronto. But I can go back and we can get that number for you if you like.
Okay, that would be interesting to understand and to also know Sorry, going back to the depreciation, that funding treatment, are we just moving it to effectively the balance sheet?
It's from the operating, which was funded, and it's being funded through capital.
Got it. Okay. I didn't read anything substantial on the investments that we're making around the non-service revenue ideas that we talked about. Am I incorrect with that?
So we are bringing that back through the chair. We are bringing back that next year, but we did have a report in June of 2025 that addressed the non-service revenue tactics, and I think we are using the current tools. I think Josh can speak to that if you want to add to that.
Thanks, John. Through the chair, there was also an item at, I believe, the last board meeting on a specific non-fair revenue tactic that was approved by the board that we're currently pursuing that we hope will net some revenue in 2026. That would be the in-tunnel advertising that the board directed and approved.
Got it. In your opinion, guys, is it responsible to continue to have fares frozen given where we are from a financial perspective?
We are doing through the chair, we're doing our best to try to make sure that we sustain affordability and accessibility to all our riders. I'll have Mandeep add to that comment if you'd like.
Sure. Thank you for your question. So let's just pause for a moment, if I may. So I started in July, and in July we do an assessment in terms of, I did assessment in terms of where we are, what we're going to do, and what the forecast looks like. So at the time there was 232 million gap, so to speak, when we started this process in terms of where we were and where we need to be. So what the team have diligently done and worked through is looked at opportunities, potential, and of how we address where we are in terms of 2026. However, this does not just stop here. This is the starting point in terms of really looking through in terms of what the next several years look like. This will give us the ability to forecast better and more clarity and more detail, exercising. If you recall, when I do the CEO updates, I always make very clear we're a people business. The business aspect of it now really needs to be honed in on in more granular detail than we, let's say, previously, because of the fact of where we are financially. So in terms of your question, nothing is off the table. We just need to make sure that we focus on what are revenue generating opportunities in terms of by the services we deliver, and also, as Josh highlighted, where other opportunities exist to extrapolate further and more on our non-revenue fare generating profile. So this will allow us to generate potentially more income to reduce the burden of where we are today reliant on the city, but also not negating the fact that we do need to work with our funding partners in respect to the feds and the province, in respect to the long-term sustainability, which we have commenced and started. Karen could allude to that further if so required. So it is a process that we've begun. Are we there yet? Oh, no. Will we get there? Yes.
So
Last question.
Thank you for that. John, based on your math, it's $1.90 if we wanted to offset what that hole looks like. And look, any organization facing these same funding pressures will take a step back and say, what are the immediate levers that we can pull within our domain to try and solve this? It's not necessarily about relying on our other partners or placing the blame on the province, but what are we doing immediately to try and solve for this? If we're not doing anything about fares, what else are we doing right now to try and alleviate what this hole looks like?
So what we're doing through the chair, what we're doing for this year, we're getting together with the the SPC committee meeting and coming up with a strategy to deal with revenue strategy, with a fair compliance strategy, fair strategy, and how do we accommodate and to deal with this actual gap that we're facing. There's a lot in place, and I think that we have some idea of what we want to do, and then we'll consolidate with the SPC committee and bring that forth for 2027.
Yeah, And so just to build upon that, just to reiterate, our fixed costs as a business, and as everyone looks at the business as a fixed cost, 75% to 80% is a fixed cost that we have. So our ability to maneuver is less agile than say, if you were in the IT business, for example. I just want to make sure that we're level pegging and baselining on where we're starting from.
Thank you. Next, we have Councillor Matlow.
Thank you. The TTC submitted an application for the Bodyman Apprenticeship Program, and I understand that it was to the skills, the very controversial Skills Development Fund, and it was rejected. Do you understand why it was rejected? Like, what was in the application that was rejected? Because my understanding is that everyone from Friends of the Government to strip clubs received some money.
Through the chair, I don't have a comment, but I'll ask Karen to speak to that.
Through the chair, yes, we did apply to the Skills Development Fund. It was a heavily subscribed program, and that was the response we got when our application was rejected. There is another round of the Skill Development Fund that is open that we have applied to and are hopeful that that application will be successful this go around.
I was going to ask you about the Plan B, not to get too into it, but it's a highly politicized fund. To be generous, do we have any understanding whether or not the actual merit of our application will be considered, and have we discussed that with anyone? Do we understand, how our chances are?
So through the chair, I will say that we believe we have a very strong application, that it meets the program objectives. We did have conversation with ministry at a staff level to ensure that we were compliant with the objectives of the program. And at this point, we are waiting for the results of the next round of review.
Has there been any discussion that if we're not granted those funds, that there be some consideration to at least fund a portion of it ourselves?
Through the chair, I would say that is something that we would need to review through a budget process where we are prioritizing different options against each other. At this point, our hope is that we can utilize this available funding program, which we think we are eligible for, to pay for this cost.
Okay, thank you. With respect to state of good repair funding, do we believe that we will have a substantive impact by these investments on everything from slow zones to the constant delays that riders are experiencing? Is it a dent? Is it material? What are we what do we believe the real impact will be this year?
So through the chair, yes, we are investing a significant amount of our funding in 2026 to go towards our subway infrastructure, whether it's track, as well as our signal systems. With respect to the slow zones in particular, maybe I could ask Fort to provide a bit of an update.
Sure, thanks, Mark. Through the chair. Yes, definitely money is going to be an important piece of it. I also think, as I mentioned previously, time is also important as well. You can give all the money in the world, but if the time isn't there to actually get the work done, that's also an important piece of it. And then I'll also say one final thing. There's spillover effects. Giving the time and giving the money for just a track replacement without considering the bigger picture, things like leak remediation, capital funding, things like investing in reliable work vehicles is also an important piece of this entire puzzle.
You demonstrated your cognizance of the problem, but I didn't hear the answer to my question with all due respect. There's two areas that I understand to be true, and correct me if I'm wrong, that are the core reasons for the constant delays that we all experience in our subways. One is a state of good repair needs, and we've got an aged system that needs a lot of love. The other part of it is trespassing onto our tracks for a number of different reasons. We put the platform edge doors out to pasture. because of a lack of funding. So on those two areas, what investments are we making in this budget to address those two concerns? And what do you believe those investments will do to actually have a real impact that people can actually experience in their daily lives? Therefore, seeing the subway and our system more reliable so that they choose to make the TTC the better way for their lives.
So I'll just quickly start, and Mark can jump, and Ford can jump in. In respect to, I'll reference the latter to the former restricted speed zones. So you'll know better than I, these numbers were in the high 20s and stroke when we started this path over a year ago. It's, and as you know, the path of the MERMIC testing, once it comes through, ignites these even further. So we do this now, as you know, twice a year. The numbers have steadily come down. We're now at, post the second survey, just into double digits, which is a vast difference from where we used to be. When I say double digits, I'm talking 10, 11, as opposed to the high 20s and 30s.
Are you talking about existing investments or the new investments that we're making?
I'm talking the investments we're making that are pulling through to negate the restricted speed zones and the disruptions it's causing. So that will pull through into 2026. So that's one item in terms of the tangible benefits of. The former, in respect to, you referenced in terms of unauthorized access onto track. As the board will be aware, we started a pilot on the 15th of November, and that pilot was looking at how customers move across the system. We had got some additional funding from the city in respect to resources, and that with that additional funding, which is the Toronto Crisis Community Services, which we've had deployed around the U. We've also looked at how our security is deployed and how our staff are deployed. We've got the numbers in context in terms of where the high-profile incidents are occurring, and we're deploying accordingly. So why that's important is because that trial will define how our return on investment is paying off in dividends. While not measurable in cash, it should be measurable by delay impact. That will then again, through the investments that Mark will go through, help pull through in terms of performance. So in terms of the two items you highlighted, we have started, we are making a difference, and we will make further gains for 2026 and beyond. And I'll pass over to Mark and Ford to add to that.
So through the chair, I think what I could add is that I'm not sure if it's the next meeting or February, but the closures and diversions plan will be coming back to the board, which will really detail all of the various capital activity that's happening within the subway system. And we can try to relate that to some of those slow zones that are occurring and how those will be remedied over the year and over the coming years, because I believe, excuse me, we're coming back with the overall strategy moving forward as well on how we tackle the closures and diversions and our state of good repair.
And I guess just to add to the chair, Commissioner Matlow, absolutely unequivocally, state of good repair needs to be funded. If state of good repair is funded, asset reliability goes up, the customer experience goes up. And so it needs to be sustainable, not 1 year at a time or 2 years at a time. The assets are getting older. We're putting more and more vehicles out on these systems. These systems are deteriorating faster than they were 20 years ago.
Thank you. Next, we have Vice Chair Mahevik.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year and all. I'm wondering about a couple of questions that are really very budget specific. The savings from the Eglinton buses and Finch buses that are no longer being required, do we have a number there, or how does that accounting work? I'm imagining that, well, especially hearing that the province is in for 100% of the funding of the Finch LRT. Province is in for 100% funding of the operational costs of the Eglinton LRT. That represents, we've got a lot of buses hanging around is what I'm imagining, and we have a lot of operators that are, some of whom are going over to the LRT system, but we have buses. How are we capturing that savings? Where's that?
So through the chair, I'll have Lawrence add to that, but we have 10 million of that in savings regarding okay. So, but we currently have a parallel service on line 6 embedded in our service hours. Lawrence, you want to add something?
Just for the Finch
So through the chair, as part of the implementation of the bus network changes for line 5 and line 6, any bus savings right now are being held aside. So the equivalent of the reduction in buses on Finch and Eglinton, they're being used to support or being added to other routes in parallel or intersecting that could be used in the event of a service disruption on the LRT. So unlike a typical subway disruption, we wouldn't be pulling buses from existing routes that would impact those routes negatively. These are extra buses being added on nearby routes.
Okay, so, and that's on us?
So that is being funded through Metrolinx.
The extra buses on alternative routes?
Yes. This is instead of having the buses just sitting and doing nothing, this is just so the buses are actually in motion and being able to supplement service on other routes. At the point where we're confident that the service on both LRT lines does not require the need for these contingency services, we would be reinvesting those bus savings elsewhere in the network, and that has been held aside potentially to support ridership growth strategy initiatives or other initiatives in the 5-year service plan.
So right now you've booked $10 million for that as a savings, and everything else is being considered in the operational details of different routes, including along Eglinton and Finch, but maybe other places in the system. So you've kind of put that aside?
Yeah, so through the chair, an example would be we've added a few buses to Shepherd West, for example. So they're nearby Finch. So in the event there's an issue on Finch, we can pull those 3 extra buses on Shepherd to go onto Finch to run as a shuttle.
Oh, I see. Okay, so some of the savings is actually being reinvested in extra service.
Yes, because it's better to have them in service than just sitting around doing nothing.
That should be highlighted. The next question is technology, the shift to fare capping. As I understand it, 2026 for 8 months, we'll be figuring out the technology. Is that a major piece of work? It's a sincere question.
Through the chair, we have the ability to introduce with our partners at Presto that fare capping product quite soon. So I don't think we'll need all of that time to figure out the technology. Most of it is there. What we look forward to with Presto 2.0 or our kind of next iteration of fare collection is a model where we could look at different fare capping beyond just monthly.
Sorry,
beyond just monthly as a single product. So the future down the road would be hopefully a system where we could look at daily fare capping, weekly, monthly. It could be event-based. And so that's the next iteration that technology will bring us. But right now, we're in a position where we can introduce the one product, which would be the monthly.
And from a budget perspective, that's on the capital side for the technology improvements. Is that on us or is that on Metrolinx?
Through the chair, right now, the kind of the one product, which is the monthly that's available, that's captured in our relationship and our commercial contract with Presto.
So it's on them.
Correct. The future, we are in a process of negotiating what our next deal might look like, and so I think we would speak to that more when we have a better sense of what that negotiation is looking like.
Right. Okay. And the way the system will work will be, so I have a credit card and I have a Presto card. If I do 20 rides on the Presto card, but the 20 to 30 rides using my credit card because I forgot my Presto card at home, too bad, so sad. It has to be one card. It's per card. Is that the way it's going to?
Through the chair, and I think there was a conversation or a suggestion from deputants early about trying to market this, and we will need to because we recognize it's a changed behavior for a lot of our customers, but part of that will be encouraging people, to get a Presto account. We think that's the best way they can go so they can realize all the benefits. But for those who choose or want to use debit or credit, it would be associated with that debit or credit card.
And therefore, don't touch your Presto card.
Final question.
So through the chair, the same card.
Okay, great. Okay, I'll let it go there. Thank you.
Next, I have Councillor Bravo.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start on the capital side. In 2023, the federal government announced a program to fund public transit across Canada, totaling $3 billion per year for a launch in 2026. But as one of the deputants mentioned, there's been that's been merged into a larger infrastructure fund in the last budget. And given the the capital pressures that we've been discussing here, has the TTC followed up with the status of the fund with the federal government? And if so, if there is any kind of progress, could that funding be used to address the immediate track repair issues that I think are underlying a lot of our discussions here?
So through the chair, I know Karen's team has been actively engaging with HICC, who manages the program, so maybe I'll ask Karen to expand on it.
So through the chair, yes, we've been actively engaged with the federal government about the outcomes of Budget 2025. While the budget document was not clear that Canada Public Transit Fund continues to stand as a dedicated stream, we have got confirmation that it does stand alone, separate from the Building Community Strong Fund. What is happening is they are reviewing two of the streams under the CPTF, not the baseline funding stream, which we have full funding confirmation of, by the way, so our Toronto TTC allocation is fine, but they are looking at streamlining the process for how funds are flowed through two of the streams under the Canada Public Transit Fund. And we are continuing to work with them to ensure that that actually happens in a manner that is supportive of TTC's ability to apply for priority state of good repair funding.
Okay, so that would be yes, if when it comes through, it could go to immediate track repairs, but it's not clear that that could be available for 2026, correct?
Not for 2026. That's part of the ongoing discussion about how they're going to streamline two of the program elements.
Okay. So on the operational side, we formed a strategic planning committee to consider the options for how the TTC board would and staff would allocate the historic increase that the City of Toronto has provided TTC during this time in the last couple of years. Is it accurate to say that the driving kind of decision-making matrix was that we wanted to focus on increasing ridership? Sustaining and increasing ridership?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay. And so what came to the front as useful was rapid TO, good bang for the buck, correct? And yeah, and we started with that. And the second thing that was very apparent, in addition to the capital repairs that are underlying, but on the operational side, had to do with fare affordability. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so while the strategic planning committee's deliberations did include fare capping, those funds came through the mayor's own announcement about what she would include in her budget. Is that correct?
The chair, that's correct.
But to go back to the reason that we would keep fares frozen, is it accurate to say that the available pool of riders would be coming to TTC, who would continue to use TTC and use it more, would be workers who take daily at least 2 rides to work, because they have to go to work. Some of them have multiple jobs, and primarily working with lower wages, and particularly young people and women. Is that accurate in terms of the data we've been collecting?
Yes, the focus was a lot in regards to freezing the fares and the fare capping was to obviously improve equity, as you mentioned, through the SBC, our frequent riders, our students, and guarantee a monthly price ceiling without requiring any upfront pass purchases.
But in addition, the people, while the back to work mandates did not materialize in terms of a significant, downtown flow of workers who may still have the choice, who may not be reporting to work or have the choice to take other means, the people who are primarily available to the TTC for growth are people that are having to go to work and may not be, aren't taking a car for a number of reasons, including young people and shift workers. And is that accurate?
It's a combination, through the chair, it's a combination of both, because we have seen an increase in the downtown core subway of 6%. 4%, sorry. The streetcar is 1%, but we've seen a drop on the bus on the outer skirts about 6%. So that is the fact that the economy is softened and those workers or students or international students have been impacting our results.
Yeah, so this international student piece is definitely impacting us, but there are still people that have to go to work and are going to take a bus.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then
Last question.
Thank you. So on the question of the commercial parking levy, just to be clear, what did the City of Toronto staff say with regard to the ability to implement a commercial parking levy? I'm not sure if anybody here can answer that question, but I recall that there was, the answer was that for it to be implemented fairly and therefore stand up to scrutiny, Municipal Property Assessment Corporation had to be involved. Is that accurate?
Through the chair, I can't comment on that, but my understanding is that has been pushed to the MPAC, and that will be addressed in 2026.
Okay, so in 2026, we'll understand what the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation would do with us to be able to explore any kind of solution like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Councillor Sachs.
Yes, thank you. Many questions, get through what I can. The first is that on slide 10, you indicated there's $10 million in efficiencies, and this is one of the very few items in which we actually get some details as to what you mean by that, and that's on slide 38. And what slide 38 shows, if I'm reading it correctly, is that you've got efficiency measures totaling $9.8 million in 2026. The second largest of those is Rapid TO, $2.6 million. Now, this board gave specific directions to staff, and we made commitments to the public that any savings from installing Rapid TO on Dufferin and Bathurst would be reinvested into service improvements on those routes. How can you reinvest all the savings in service improvements on those routes as the public has been promised and at the same time save $2.6 million?
So through the chair, we have reinvested that savings and the uptick, as the deputy mentioned, that Bathurst has improved. And RAPTO savings were redirected to service improvements, specifically moving to 6 minutes or better. And especially in the Bathurst, which was introduced in November. I'm not sure if Lawrence has added anything to that as well on the Rapid TO or Josh.
Through the chair, yeah, John, just that. So those savings have already been reinvested. So that's the approach we are taking. So in November of this year, we moved Bathurst to a 6 minute or better network, and we would anticipate taking the same approach in 2026 when growth or demand increased on those corridors, that we would reinvest dollars there to meet that demand.
To be clear, because I don't get any clarity from that. The commitment that the instruction the board gave and the commitment we gave the public was that all savings from Rapid TO on Bathurst and Dufferin would be redeployed into service improvements on that route. How can you both reinvest all those savings into those service improvement and have $2.6 million left over?
So we generated $2.6 million. We put back $1.7 million directly into the budget, and the $0.9 million that I think you're referring to was directed back to Bathurst. So we want to show that through the Rapid TO strategy that there is savings, and that savings is redirected to Bathurst.
So there's no net saving. We've got a service improvement at Bathurst, but there's no net financial saving. Is that correct?
There is a revenue uptick, and we reinvested that revenue back.
So no net financial saving.
That's correct.
All right. The second thing is, one of the outstanding features of this budget, which I've objected to before, is there's no choices being given to the board. You're not asking us, should we do A or B? You're just giving us a budget. And all of the trade-offs are hidden. But one of the trade-offs is, I just want to confirm, the cash fare revenue you're expecting is about $35 million or less this year, is that right?
Sorry?
$35 million or less you're expecting in cash fares.
So we were collecting cash fares at 8%. I think that rate has dropped down. 35 is correct, yes.
Okay, and of that, you expect that it's going to cost $10 million just to manage the whole cash system, correct?
That's correct. To administrate it, it'd be $10 million.
All right, and in addition, we're losing about $10 million in fare cheating, people who use cash to not pay their complete fare, correct? Okay, so we've got $20 million in cost to the TTC in order to accept cash fares. And now, isn't it also true that many other transit systems in Ontario and around the world no longer accept cash fares?
That's correct.
And in 2021, when the Human Rights Commission expressed concern about going to Presto, we didn't have open payment. Since 2023, we have open payment, and there are many options available for people to pay whether or not they have access to Presto Outlet, right?
That's correct. But we do have a strategy, I think, Josh.
Okay, well, let's keep going. And in addition, there are now, for example, the Canada Post prepaid card that could be accessed by anybody who has access to Canada Post, and that could be used to pay for fares, correct?
That's correct.
Right. So we have, and there has also been an explosion in fintech options for people to pay their fares in the last 5 years.
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
Financial tech options. There's many more options for paying fares in the last 5 years.
Yes, open payment, exactly. Yeah.
All right. And many of those systems don't require credit checks or bank accounts. Anybody can use them without a bank account and with no credit check.
Yes, there are options available.
Okay. The third thing is you mentioned in your presentation that lines 5 and 6, the new LRTs, are intended to ensure significant benefits for riders. So far, line 6 is slower than the bus and less reliable, correct?
I'll pass that to Lawrence. I'm not really sure.
So I'll refer to Fort to go through the numbers on line 6.
I'm not looking for taking a lot of time on detailed analyses, but it's been really clear from Steve Monroe's analysis, has it not, that line 6 provides worse service to riders than the bus.
One more question.
So currently, we're still in the bedding in period in respect to following the Ottawa recommendations. Currently...
Okay, let me get to my question. Okay. I don't want us to make the same mistake twice in 3 months. Do we have any reliable evidence that Eglinton Crosstown is going to be faster and more reliable than the bus if we open it this month or next?
Through the chair, line 5 is operating in a very different context than on Finch. The scheduled travel times that we're expecting on line 5 are a significant improvement to the bus. Especially when you consider the Eglinton corridor, especially on the surface section, is a very different context than it is on Finch, where it's constantly congested at all hours of the day.
Do we have good evidence that it'll be faster than the bus?
Final question.
Through the chair, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Councillor Ainsley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to ask about the ridership safety doors in the stations. My understanding is we've pushed that out to 2040.
Through the chair, are you referring to platform edge doors?
Yes.
Yeah, so that program has been somewhat reprofiled and extended beyond the 15-year window of the capital investment plan. So a portion of those, the funding required, sits outside of the current CIP.
Okay, so that's beyond 2040.
Correct.
Okay, and I was wondering how that aligns with the subway construction that's going up into Markham past our Finch station. What's the timeline for the construction of that?
Through the chair, I think, Commissioner Ainsley, you're talking about the Yonge North subway extension, that's Metrolinx project?
Yes. Yep.
I would defer to Metrolinx on the timing of opening. I know it is an active construction. My team works with them quite closely, but we do not have a confirmed end date for that delivery.
Okay, and I guess my question is just around that when I look at all the downtown stations, King, Queen, Dundas, College, Wellesley, as we continue to push out the safety door project, extending the line up into Markham with all those people going into the downtown core and then coming out, the dangers around it. And will we be looking at those two projects in conjunction with each other?
Through the chair, we have a Line 1 capacity enhancement program, which is looking at station capacities associated with the 2041 and 2051 ridership modeling. So we're looking at capacities and safety measures as well.
Okay, all right. And then where are we in building elevators for all of our stations so they're fully accessible to riders?
Through the chair, happy to report actually that we have brought 4 additional stations into service, elevators, in December. So we are now at a status of 63 of 70 subway stations are accessible. We are planning to have 6 more stations be made accessible in the calendar year 2026, and Old Mill is in construction and on track to be delivered as accessible in 2028. So we've made good progress.
So we're at 63 of 70?
Correct. The chair, correct.
Okay. All right, great. And then I wanted to ask about public restrooms. How many of our stations have public restrooms? I often get complaints from people that are leaving the downtown core, in particular late at night after a concert or a ball game, and they're trying to get home, and they have trouble finding a washroom on our system.
Through the chair, let me get back to you on that. It's a small number. I think you're probably looking at about 7 or 8, Commissioner Ainsley, but I can give you that number. But it's nowhere near every station having its own washroom.
Okay. And do we have a plan for trying to build more restrooms to accommodate our riders? I've actually had residents that tell me that's when they go to look for a washroom and staff tell them, if you go to the Burger King down the street or the McDonald's, they have washrooms there.
So through the chair, sorry, there's not presently a plan or funding in the CIP to address the public washrooms. Only renovations or rehabilitation to the existing plan.
And through the chair, we have 11 stations with washrooms, and we'll have more being added with the new lines coming on.
Okay. And when we build a station with washrooms, is that like at the end of a line, or are they spaced out, or is it just a matter of having available space and money?
Through the chair, they typically are at an end of the line station or at an interchange station is where those washrooms would be.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Those are my questions.
Thank you. So I have some questions too. The first question is on the fare evasion. First, did we reach the target that we had set out in the 2025 budget? I think it was $10 million.
Through the chair, the target was 12, and obviously we've got to audit our 2025 results, but we know we've reached it and surpassed it, at least at around $15.5 million. And so a lot of the tactics approved by this board resulted in those savings.
Thank you. And do we have a target for the 2026 budget for reducing fare evasion?
Through the chair, we're finalizing that target as we speak. It will be less than last year just because we've kind of hit some of the low-hanging fruit. But I think the intent and the progress we showed in 2025 has us encouraged that we'll continue to create savings with protecting revenue.
Thank you. And the report notes that no new fare evasion targets are being planned. I remember there was talk of looking at eliminating backdoor boarding for the buses during off-peak periods when most of the fare evasion happens on buses. Is that not being so considered?
Through the chair, that analysis is being done right now, so that will be considered and instituted as part of our 2026 approach. 2026 is very much going to be a shift to bus, I would say, in terms of mode. We've had good progress over the last year or so at stations. We continue to kind of have coverage on streetcars. And so with bus will be a lot of the focus in 2026, where most of our fare evasion happens.
And will that be going to the Strategic Planning Committee or the Audit and Risk Management Committee, that work?
Through the chair, I know it's been kind of a regular cadence to go to Audit and Risk Management, but I do expect that at some point later in 2026, there'd also be some updates for the board.
Great. And then the budget assumes that there will be no modest growth, I think growing to modest growth in this year. Is the budget assuming that there will be no ridership growth strategy? Like, how does that factor in?
Through the chair, I'll let John and the finance team add in. So just a few things. So we do have, as you know, the ridership growth strategy we're developing, and that will be brought to the Strategic Planning Committee in the spring of 2026. And with that, we hope to drive ridership and in turn with revenue. But I'd leave it to the finance team just to kind of speak to how much of that growth is factored into the budget numbers.
Through the chair, just highlighting here, we have 426 million revenue rise for 2026, so we're factoring about a 3.1% versus 2025.
So are we assuming that the whatever ridership growth strategy that we implement in 2026, that it won't have a significant effect?
No, we factor in, we looked at FIFA, we'll add some more rides as well, line 5 and 6, but pretty much the other ones are pretty modest, just to deal with operational needs.
But that's separate from the ridership growth strategy. That's going to happen regardless of whether we adopt one or not.
Right.
So specific to the ridership growth strategy, have we made the assumption that zero? Have we put zero as the assumption? Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. So these numbers, so this is a conservative estimate. There may be additional boosts to ridership based on what the board
we will go through, Chair, through yourself. We'll go through the 2026 and in-year adjustments if we see things and trends have changed or forecast has changed.
Thank you.
Chair, if I could just add, with that report, say, landing in April or May, we're just also cognizant of when you're able to implement those tactics that are associated with that strategy, there's always a lag effect on that ridership that comes. And so being cautious to think that it would immediately come as soon as we introduce a tactic.
Great, thank you. And then I see that 68 people are being added to address travel patterns and respond to congestion in the budget. Are any of those people sort of going to be looking at how travel patterns have changed from more of a strategic level and having that guide sort of how we implement the ridership growth strategy? From what I saw from the last time, it was more focused on tactics, but there was no real analysis that the fundamental travel patterns of customers has changed. And are we, for example, moving the service to address that now?
Through the chair, those 68 are just operators. But I think through Josh and David's team, they will look at tactics and strategies for 2026 and 27 and beyond.
Correct. Through the chair, yes, we are. We recognize there's been a fundamental shift in travel patterns around the city in terms of mode shift and also in terms of who is using transit. And so part of our ridership growth strategy work will be diving into that to see how we would better communicate with those either lapsed or lost riders, and also who are traveling differently, so we can appeal to that rider and target and tailor our investments.
Okay, and then regarding the platform edge doors, obviously we see that it's unfunded. We had a report come to the board last year, and we know that we wanted the platform edge doors to be part of the sort of the ideas that we've sort of incorporated into any potential ridership growth strategy. Where is that work being done? Where is that project now?
Getting feedback, apologies. So through the chair, I know we originally reported to the board on the proposed pilot, but the team, they're still assessing and reviewing the overall implementation plan for that proposed pilot, as well as the overall platform edge door strategy for the network-wide.
So is that going to be done by April or May when the ridership growth strategy comes to the Strategic Planning Committee?
If I could ask Stephanie to comment on the timing of that.
Through the chair, I would say we certainly want to return to Strategic Planning Committee in 2026. I'd need to coordinate with my colleagues on bringing that together with the ridership strategy.
Okay. I'm out of time, so do people have a second round of questions? Okay, so we'll go to a second round. Commissioner Osborne?
I have a couple that actually continue on with a couple of your lines of thought, Mr. Chair. So on congestion, you just said there were 68 bodies and that those positions are actually operators?
That's correct, through the chair.
And do we have any idea of how much money we are spending because of congestion to cope with growing congestion?
Yes, so we've done some number crunching, and based on 2015's actual speed versus the 2025 budget speed, is probably the impact of congestion is roughly around 100 million.
100 million? 100 million?
That's only on bus, though. We have not looked at other modes as well yet.
Yeah. Okay, that is a rather eye-watering number. Okay, on fare compliance, how much are we investing in fare compliance, all in?
For 2026,
Yes.
I'll ask Josh, but I don't think we haven't, is there any money in the, I don't think there's any money in the 2026 budget for that.
Through the chair, we are adding new fare inspectors in 2026. It's largely to cover the lines 5 and 6.
So do we know how much we're spending on this?
In total?
Yeah.
I can get you that number in a moment.
Okay. And then I'm interested to know if there's anything in the package, and it might be a buried number, where we're starting to actually be able to point to a line item that indicates that it's working, that we are actually seeing some measurable progress on this.
Through the chair, we have several indicators where we are seeing progress. So as I mentioned earlier, we set that financial target, which we surpassed. The other way we're seeing it is that we've done spot audits on different modes and different locations, and we start to see that some of the tactics are showing results. I think what we've learned more than anything, and this might sound obvious or intuitive, is that it's really a people issue. And so where we're able to deploy people, our fare compliance increases. And so if we put them on the streetcar, our numbers improve there. We take them away from the streetcar to put them at stations, our streetcar numbers decline. And so while that's a costly and I recognize a labor intensive, and I would add as an aside, a really, really hard job those people do, that is the formula. And so we'll continue to be really strategic in terms of how we deploy these people because it's a limited resource, but we are seeing improvements. Noticeably with our bus off-board, we see the tap rate on buses go up considerably on those routes where we have instituted some fare inspectors that are waiting for customers as they disembark from those buses at stations.
And presumably there were also improvements where we made structural changes, crash gates and so on, that those would have. Obviously, some people will find other ways to do it, but it would have had a measurable impact.
Through the chair, yes, and that's where we saw a lot of our benefits at stations, making those physical and structural changes. We continue to look at that just because we have a very integrated system in our stations, and they, as a result, can be somewhat porous in terms of the flow of people, and so we continue to look at other ways to deter some of that activity.
Okay, last question. I didn't see, again, this I'm sure is a buried number, but I didn't see any detail on overtime. And it's like $1.5 million a week. And I'm wondering, because we had a very, very poor performance this year in hitting the budgeted numbers that we produced, some for obviously very good reasons. Anyway, I'm just curious what the situation is in the budget for overtime.
Through the chair, we've kept our overall overtime numbers the same as 2025.
Okay. That's it for me. Thank you.
I'll just maybe just add through the chair. So for 26, that amounts to $2.6 million in revenue protection increase with those new fare inspectors. $2.6 million.
Josh, I couldn't hear.
$2.6 million in 2026.
What?
Revenue protection, the increase in fare inspectors.
That's the increase.
Correct.
Thank you. Anybody else want to do a second round? Councillor Bravo?
Thank you, Chair. Can give me an idea of how much real savings there would be if there was the elimination of cash fares? For example, if a person is paying a partial fare, would they find a different way to fare evade if they are no longer allowed to pay a partial cash fare?
Through the chair, that's a really good question. So the amount we identify that we audit amount that we lose from partial fares, it's hard to say. So if someone pays $250 and a bunch of cash on a bus, would they now not take transit? Or would they, would we even lose that amount because they evade a different way? So that's part of the analysis that we would do. So partial fares, in terms of whether we would recapture all that lost revenue, is a very different question than as opposed to what we think we're losing on partial fares.
And given that the City of Toronto is such a large investor in transit and has a poverty reduction strategy, and is very concerned with the digital divide, which is very much present. A number of people don't have smartphones. They don't live close to a Shoppers Drug Mart. They might not be able to afford the purchase of a Presto card. A lot of people don't have access to, aren't banked because they're very low income. So they don't use banks. They use Money Mart to cash checks, or they don't have access to a credit card. While this is not, it's not the TTC's job to worry about poverty, is it accurate to say that social development staff have repeatedly indicated that there would be a measurable harm to people who are very low income in Toronto should we move to a cashless system altogether?
Through the chair, they have. I think the other important factor with this is as we've transitioned to Presto, we changed the way people access fare through our retail network. And so as everyone remembers, in the old days with tickets and tokens, basically every single corner store had access to TTC fares. And so before Presto, about 99% of the cities within 15 minutes of accessing fares that way. We're now at 77%. And so part of the challenge is, and we continue to push and work with Presto on that, is increasing that amount so that people can get access to any method of fare in those parts of the city. Stations is a bit of a different example because we have machines at stations.
Yeah.
For that reason, we've also piloted machines at certain locations in the city.
Right, but that would be a very expensive proposition to have machines everywhere to be able to make it
Yes,
equitable.
machines would be very expensive, and so that's why we continue to push Presto to expand the third-party network.
I wanted to ask about fare compliance. There are, I believe, some cities in which fines are actually purchases of transit fares. I'm not sure if anybody can answer that, but I understand that there are cities where the fine actually is you buy a block of, you actually buy a certain number of rides, and that the penalty is actually that you buy fares. And it is a very different approach to less punitive and more constructive in terms of incentivizing adoption of purchasing a fare as a public good. Is that true, or did I just dream that up? Does anybody know?
Through the chair, there are systems in cities where they say on a first offense, what your first option is, they allow you to pay as opposed to, and we have done that too and piloted it here and it's worked. There are other systems where it's quite the opposite and the extreme, where they will make you pay for all of your avoided fares that they've calculated, and that sometimes those bills can total in the many thousands if their card has shown that. So we do work with our other systems and are looking what they're doing on that one to see if we are able to, but we have handheld devices, not on every fare inspector, where they can actually have someone pay as an option.
Yeah, I mean to say that right now we pay an increasing penalty, but the penalty is a fine as opposed to a purchase of a block of fares, which is a philosophically different approach and is...
Through the chair, correct.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Sachs.
Yeah, just a follow-up question again. Josh, please. You said 77% of the city are in an easy walk of a Presto machine, but many of those people who are not close to a Presto machine have access to other means of payment now that we have open payment, right?
Through the chair, it's actually 72%, just to write the record, but yes, correct. With open payment, there are other methods, but in terms of just the third-party retail network, that 15-minute walk distance has changed.
Right, but you're talking about Presto, and there's many other systems. So, for example, Canada Post has outlets all over the city. Many of the places that there aren't a Presto outlet, there'll be access to Canada Post, right?
Through the chair, correct.
And Canada Post sells a prepaid card that can be used on TTC.
Through the chair, correct.
All right, and there's many other systems. The point is that although not everyone has easy access to Presto, there are many other options for payment now that we have open payment that are available all across the city.
That's through the chair, correct. And what we would encourage all our customers to do is to get a Presto account online, and that way would give them a freedom of payment, but also they could benefit in the 2-hour transfer.
Absolutely, but if people choose not to use Presto, there are many other options that weren't available 5 years ago.
Through the chair, correct.
Right across the city.
Through the chair, correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for second round? No? Okay, I just have a few questions. So in the last budget, we had a figure for cost avoidance for conditional Wheel-Trans users who were travel trained, who then chose to use conventional transit. I think it was $600,000 in 2025. Do we have an updated figure for 2026?
It's the same figure we have for 2026 as well.
Same figure? Why is it the same figure if, there's more passengers, presumably, that are travel trained?
I think it was a net, going back, I'm not sure if Cameron's online, but if he can answer the question, but there was a net impact of those that moved in different ways, so the overall net impact was the same.
Okay. Could I get maybe Cameron to get a further better? Okay, thank you. Second question is, last year we had done an employee survey about, part of addressing some of the longstanding concerns of employees and also part of a larger culture change program. I didn't see anything directly talking about it in the budget. Is that initiative funded or is that underway?
I'll have, do you want to speak to that?
Through the chair, the employee engagement survey results we've received, we're working through our plan corporately to respond to the survey. Throughout the year, I think we're going to be putting together a task force we're ready to come up with a clear action plan, and updates are going to come through the People, Culture, and Governance Committee.
So is that not going to have a funding impact for 2026 then?
No, it's already in the budget. Yeah. So we carried from 2025, part of our pillar where we've implemented it as an engagement action plan and launched the employee engagement task force as he alluded to as well.
But I'm actually talking about some of the whatever actions you take. There's going to be a cost to, presumably some of them.
There may be, potentially, yes.
So none of that is in the budget?
No.
Okay. Final question regarding the 5-year streetcar replacement. I know we've talked about this. Is there any additional thoughts on switching to the 2-point switchblades as you do this rollout? I know there's a computer system that has to be updated. Is that somewhere in this budget, or are we still continuing with the single-point switchblades?
Through the chair, at this point, the budget only has the single point switches. There's been an engineering review that will commence, and based on what that plan lays out and all the budget that comes with it, then we'll adjust in course.
So that could be coming next budget or sometime this year?
It'll probably be next budget. I'm confident that next budget will have a much better handle on cost benefit of moving to that technology.
Thank you. Final question regarding the wayfinding strategy. I think it's $3.9 million that's funded. What can Torontonians expect from the $3.9 million in year one?
Through the chair, with the new wayfinding strategy that was approved by this board, we're going to see a few things in 2026 with that money. And so the first is that we're piloting the new wayfinding standard at 3 stations. We're looking
What stations?
We're looking at Finch West, TMU, and St. George. On top of that, we're looking at 6 stations where we would enhance wayfinding. We're probably going to make that a bit World Cup focused. where we would look at the station exit numbering, which is a key part of the wayfinding strategy. We would look at platform maps, mats, that you see at certain stations right now, in addition to some digital enhancements and improvements at those stations. The other thing worth noting is that we are piloting a digital, or I guess you could call it an e-paper, information screens that would be at bus stops and stations. And so that's something that people will start to see out in the system in 2026.
Great. No other questions? I guess we can go to speakers. Vice Chair, sorry, it's 1 o'clock. Do you guys mind if we just finish up? Okay. Vice Chair?
Well, that was fast, so I'll just...
Is it on? Is it the green button?
Test. I've been gonged. Test, okay. Yes. It's good that it's not us. I think there's a lot of good in it. And I think all of us have been around this circle enough times to know when it's budget time at the TTC that the community comes out and sometimes it does not say the kindest things. But here, today's presentations, we're actually very supportive of the direction that we're going. The two big wins, and when money is tight, freezing fares is a big win. And I think the TTC staff and the mayor and council needs to be complimented just on that piece alone. The second big win, of course, that has been identified by the public and by us as well, is that having fare capping, that's a big win as well. So I think those pieces are really, really good and really need to be celebrated. The things that weren't mentioned so much that are also in the budget that I read, is enhancements to system integrity. And that's everything from crisis workers, homelessness outreach. That's an important piece as well. And more service also is an important piece as well. We're not shaking up the world with a big enhancement of service, but it's moving the ball in the right direction. And so all in all, I think this is a very supportable budget in a very, very difficult year. So I'm going to be, of course, supportive. To those who say, oh boy, this is going to cost us and we're burying ourselves in a hole, well, you know what? We also have a contribution to make to another cost that is a societal cost, and that's the cost of congestion. The last I read, I think this is the number, is congestion in Toronto, this is all mobility, costs the city something like $14 billion, which detracts from investors coming to Toronto as a place where you can do business, travel, experience ball games and theater and so on. That also is a cost, and I think we as a TTC and as a city have to make a contribution to alleviating it. There's no way of getting around, someone's paying for something, and I think us saying fare freeze, fare capping is a good contribution to make, recognizing that it's not sustainable in the long term, and I think that's the second message. I don't know where, and I'd love to move a motion. Well, no, I don't want to move a motion, but I'm just hoping that the chair can hear it and the CEO can hear it. We need a platform as the TTC, and maybe it's the Strategic Planning Committee, maybe it's the Budget Committee, but somehow we have to grapple with it. We need a plan. We need a plan to get the province's attention, the federal attention, the public's attention. Some of it is education, some of it is community development, some of it is making sure that we have the right numbers, and do an education piece to the public to make sure that they understand why we're pushing and doing this public advocacy. Good boards, I think, and I sit on a few boards, oh boy, do we ever fundraise. Everyone's fundraising. So I think this board too should be seen as an asset to help in the strategy to develop a funding strategy. I mean, we've done this, we've visited it, we have revisited it many times over the past several decades. We need to do it again. We need a new funding formula for the long term. So we've survived this year, it's in a good place, but you know, Adam Cahoon mentioned it, the CEO mentioned it, other speakers have mentioned it. We need something so that we can do more of this good work in years to come. And where we house that work is something that I hope we can think through. Last point, and I'll be quick about it. I do find, well, I'll put it positively, the capital budget, all politics is local. I want to know, is my subway station in my area, is it getting the elevator this year? We need a budget presentation where each project has a one-sheet summary so that local councillors can let people know this is how the TTC is spending their money, so that the public can know this is how your tax dollars at work, and so that we as well can, as TTC commissioners, can know where the money is going and the specific projects that are being funded. That is not before us. Somehow, you know, in days of old, we used to get big binders like this, you could find it. But one-pagers, something like that. We need a communication strategy here, both internal to us and external to the public. If we're spending all these billions of dollars, I think we need to, we can't just say state of good repair is this much, legislative is this much, or by category, bus. We need specific projects. All politics is local. I think we need to kind of identify it in a more granular level. Not everything, not
Vice Chair, just you're over time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I have Councillor Bravo.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to reflect on some of the real progress that I've experienced since being elected a councillor. The first budget that I went through in 2023, we were not told what routes would be cut. Even on the council floor at the time, Commissioner Moyse and myself as a councillor asked the CEO what would be cut, and the answer was we don't know. And it was only through Freedom of Information requests that we found out that there was a list of cuts. And you know, I don't think it was a good vision to cut, for example, the Dufferin bus, which is such an important artery for the city. But look, and at the same time, there was a fare increase. Look at where we are today. Given the massive threats that have been faced by the TTC, from the pandemic to changes to immigration policy, the loss of the international students that were so important to the ridership, we are seeing some progress. I take TTC every day, sometimes multiple times a day, all over the city, not just in Davenport. And I can see that the decisions that are being made, the investments of the additional funds that have been provided by the City of Toronto, the new deal that the mayor was able to secure with the province are producing some positive results. I know that we come here a lot and we talk about how things are very negative, but I want to send a message to the public. The TTC is safer, it's more reliable. The transit, the service has gone up, it's more frequent, and that's important because we have to, while we want to hold ourselves accountable and the staff accountable, the system accountable, it's a very challenging thing to continually run it down. In terms of where we're headed, I do want to agree with Commissioner Mihevc, the Vice Chair, that we need to turn collectively, I think, some of our sites more specifically and more forcefully on the other orders of government. The TTC is absolutely essential economic and social infrastructure, not just for Toronto, but for this region, for this province, and for this country. This is the piggy bank for the entire country, and it is under threat when we don't have sustained, predictable measurably growing funding, both on the capital and operational side, like other transit systems in the world, to which we're constantly comparing ourselves. I also think that the inequality that's facing the city right now, that Toronto is the most unequal city in Canada. It is the greatest number of, in terms of child poverty. The people are becoming very rich. We have 20 billionaires that live in Toronto right now, but the majority of people are working under very difficult circumstances and just scratching survival. So the fact that we are having another fare freeze, that the fare capping is going to come, whether incrementally or not. These are really good developments for the people of the city. Growing ridership has to be our singular focus, and I think that's what we've agreed through a number of processes and meetings, that's what's going to drive decision making. Being really clear about who's out there who will take TTC. Yes, we want this not to be the mode of last resort, but in the immediate, there are a lot of people out there who will take the TTC more often, and I really want to focus on young people. There was a fare freeze for seniors before, but not for youth, and I think it's really important that we consider how we are shaping behavior among young people and adoption and love for the system. I recall and when I was younger, people would drop their money into the fare box, even if there was no collector. There was a real pride and value, just like the staff have shown on all the staff evaluations. They're proud to work at TTC. So if we can collectively, as a social movement approach, not just the board, but also the public, the members of the public, the advocacy organizations, have a really sharp and very focused ask to the provincial and federal governments, there is no guarantee that there will be a second New Deal. And we need to make the case economically, we need to make the case politically, socially, why this really matters, so that we can rebuild in a meaningful way and return to the good days when people all over the world came to admire this system, which has been starved and yet endures. And I want to thank all the members of the public who have continually pushed for this, and all of our TTC staff, the operators, mechanics, all of the staff that are doing the policy work here, because I think despite enormous odds, we are enduring, and the future looks positive in my view.
Thank you. Next, Commissioner Osborne.
Thank you, Chair Myers. First of all, I'd like to thank all the staff who was involved in this. Everybody around this table knows it is an absolutely enormous undertaking, and your work is appreciated. Secondly, sort of where I'm going with my line of questioning earlier, I don't think there's a transit system in the world that is comfortable raising fares for its customers, and yet they do it. And I am really concerned about 2027 and the level of financial risk that we have. So we have a duty to ensure the ongoing health of the TTC, and I'm not convinced yet that some or all of these chickens aren't going to come home to roost. Right now, the plan seems to be to cross fingers and hope that the province renews its support. And I will add that many famous people have said, hope is not a strategy. So if one or more levels of government do decide to take a pass on operating assistance for the TTC, it leaves the City of Toronto and the TTC with a really, frankly, unmanageable bill. And then we are starting to look at some pretty draconian cuts. So I hope nobody is comfortable with this. However, to end on a more positive note, I have to say, Mandeep, I was very encouraged by the direction that you indicated that you're heading as we look forward to planning and what this actually looks like, big picture, rather than slicing off little bits of it. So again, thanks everybody, and I hope I'm wrong on this provincial federal money.
Thank you, Commissioner Osborne. Next, I have Commissioner Sachs.
Thank you. I do have a motion. sort of like to come to it in a second, but this is a motion asking staff to report back on whether, and if so, when and how we should phase out cash fares, because they cost us enormous amount of money. They are a vector for a totally disproportionate amount of fare cheating, and the rationale for keeping cash fares, which was there was not another easy way to pay, no longer exists. It's not, we're not in the situation we were in April 2021 when the Human Rights Commission was concerned about going to Presto, because there now are easy alternatives. Open payments change the entire game. Hopefully I'll come back to that. I do want to echo the comments of my colleagues. I can agree with all of them. There's tremendous work being done by our staff. This is a system that has been starved and beaten and kicked and yet endures. The work that's been done to pull together, how do we keep running a $39 billion organization with pennies in a city that's choked with congestion and all kinds of mentally ill people flooding the system. I mean, there's enormous problems that the TTC does not create and is required to soldier through with a smile and good customer service, day in, day out, snowstorms, no snowstorms. I mean, really, we have astonishing staff, both in management and in the union, and I am grateful to all of them. Having said that, I have complaints. I should also say, I mean, it's very nice in an election year to be knocking on doors with no fare increase and better service, right? I appreciate that. But I agree with Commissioner Osborne that this is a very risky budget from a financial point of view, just about emptying our stabilization reserve. You know, our state of good repair, the non-state of good repair, our undone maintenance backlog bigger this year than last year, when it was already absolutely terrifying last year. You know, the public is here. We heard from everybody who want better service for all good reasons and lower costs. They want the cap to cut in at a lower number so the TTC gets less revenue, and it takes revenue to provide the existing level of service, much less better service. So people have really good reasons for wanting to pay less and have better service, but the money has to come from somewhere. And year after year, our budget shows we don't have the money to do our job. We don't have the money even for all of the statutory safety requirements. And we keep soldiering on, hoping that a bailout will come one way or another just in time. And so far it mostly has, but I mean, I agree. We continue to just go on a hope and a prayer and the goodwill of other levels of government who've been shown over and over again not to have the best interests of the city at heart. I also have to complain about the materials that come to this board. Again, I recognize an enormous amount of work went into putting all this information together. I appreciate it. But the role of a board is to provide guidance, and we get treated like a rubber stamp. There was nothing in any of these packages that gave us choices. None of the trade-offs were made visible to us. I know that a budget is fundamentally about making choices. And all of those choices were made behind closed doors and are not documented here, are not put before us. We are not asked for guidance, we're just asked to approve. I don't think that's appropriate. That's not good governance. Like, why are we here if we have no role in the trade-offs? And we can't have any role in the trade-offs if you don't show us the choices. So I recognize under the strong mayor system, the mayor controls the budget, and the amount of subsidy from the mayor is the dominating factor here, is what we can do, as well as her opinion as to whether we have things like better service and fare capping and a fare freeze. All of those things come from the mayor. But again, if we have a job here, it should be transparent. And we should be told what the consequences are of our decisions and what options there are. I also have to repeat and Commissioner Mahevik's point, all politics is local. It's really helpful for all of us to be able to say, what is going to be different in our ward this year? Which problems are going to be better? Which problems have we decided not to fix? And that information is not accessible. So I don't mean to underestimate how hard what you have to do is, but I don't think you're giving us the tools we need to do our job. So having said that, I'm grateful there's no death spiral this year. I'm very worried about next year. But this year it'll be easier to knock on doors, so thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Commissioner Jagdeo?
Thank you, Chair Myers. Well, my stomach feels like I'm in a spiral. I don't know if that's because I'm hungry or if that's because of what we're reading in the budget. Look, I just want to echo some of the sentiments of my colleagues, and I feel like it'd be irresponsible for me to not say anything around this. I feel as though sometimes our board and the organization that we are responsible for, we kick some of our decision-making down the road, and it's not sustainable. We are randomly adding service arbitrarily. We're victims of congestion. This stuff, for the most part, is not our fault. And we have immediate levers that we could be pulling as an organization, which any other corporation will be pulling the levers that they have available to them immediately to try and stop any issues. And I feel like we're just not doing that. And I understand and acknowledge that the mayor has a perspective on how this organization needs to be run and what those principles are. But like, are we really paying attention to what's happening right before our eyes? And the fact that we are an organization that we just don't have any money. We just don't. And all the actions that we're taking this year to try and fill the holes, those are great. $87 million here, pulling money from our reserve fund. We all know in this room that that is not going to be sustainable. And yes, we're doing work within the strategic planning committee to try and drive awesome levers that we can pull to make things better. But every other system around North America seems to be increasing their fares. What's the thing that they know that we don't? As just one example. So how we can't live on a hope and a prayer. We need to be strategic about this. And again, as much as it's important for us to acknowledge that, yes, we are here for the people and we have a service that is people-oriented, we also have a responsibility to ensure that we as an enterprise are financially sound. It's not just about affordability for others, it's affordability for us as an enterprise. And I am just worried that we are not doing anything immediately about that, and praying and hoping that our federal and provincial partners will come and save us, which is just bad strategy and, quite frankly, bad business acumen. So that's all I have to say on this.
Thank you. Any other questions? Or, sorry, speakers? Oh, that passed. Did you want to ask questions about that? Yeah, oh, sorry. Sorry about that. 3 minutes, a clarification of the motion.
Yes, I would like to ask, can you pull the motion up, Chris Ann? About I'm supportive of it, by the way. I think that the whole thing makes sense. My question is around the consultation with the public, which in principle I don't have a beef with. However, I am a bit concerned that 100 or 1,000 people who don't know about the 5,000 competing priorities we have might say that we want to put it on topic A, when someone in management might have something much less obvious, like those switches on the streetcars or something that hasn't bubbled up. So that is my issue with this, is the extent to which a vote from a certain small number, let's face it, of concerned citizens carries the day. That is my question.
I understand what you're saying. An economically rational organization would not do this. Okay. But we're not an economically rational organization. We live in the world of politics. Everything about the TTC is political. And my concern is that, well, we've had so much, let me back up. We are real laggards on a world scale, still taking cash with its huge costs and huge cheating rate.
That's not my piece.
So how do we get to something different can we do it without engaging the public in it? And I think that a public consultation about, should we adjust the air pump motorization lubrication system doesn't engage the public, whether or not we need those things or not. I think that it would be more helpful to make it clear to the public that the things they're asking us for are financial choices. We can't have everything. Is there a better use that they might care about for this $20 million a year other than perpetuating an outdated, cheating-prone system? And I don't know how else to do it.
So I have an issue with that, just on principle. I don't mind a consultation with the public. I just would like that to be a data point, not the only data point.
Oh, I'm not suggesting this would be the only data point. It's not a public vote.
Okay.
This is simply input. I'm asking staff to come back with their analysis and advice. I've agreed to the request of the mayor's office that we delay this until next year, although I would have liked to do it sooner. We'll get it come back as part of the fair monetization program, but we need to get it going. We've been talking about it for years. The TTC's been talking about it for years. At the Audit and Risk Management Committee, it's been really clear this is a huge problem, but it's been impossible to get the political will to do something about it. We need to get on with it.
I'm in support then. I just was worried that we were passing off
gonna be a
management
vote.
decisions
It's not a
to the public.
plebiscite.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Or any other questions of the motion? No? Okay, I will go next. So I'll just have a motion that I pre-circulated. So this is basically just, we've worked on it with staff in terms of working with the city to make sure that there's a better process for how we do the budgeting. Currently, right now, the city sort of hands TTC whatever amount of subsidy, and the TTC just runs a service. I think we need to get to a process where we're handing the money over, but we're also sort of putting in certain KPIs, goals, targets, in terms of what do we actually want to see the money do and perform, rather than, and this is not to sort of defund the system, but actually to make sure that the money that's being given to the TTC is being spent in a way that's really effective and felt by our customers. And just sort of taking a step back, I think it's important just to take note of where we are and where we started. So when I became chair, we had a Line 3 derailment. There was no money for the Line 2 trains. There was a $140 million fare evasion problem that nobody was doing nothing about. The last budget cut service while increasing fares. Toronto Life came out with that wonderful article about who broke the TTC on the front page. There were 6 looming labor strikes. There was no ridership growth strategy. Nothing was being done about bus bunching. Nothing was being done about the stations, cleanliness, and there was no strategy to deal with those in crisis. So I think it's important to just take a step back and acknowledge where we've come as a group and the work that we've done and the good work, and to really give it to the staff who've really stepped up and really helped us turn this around. Nothing is perfect, but it's a lot better from where we first started, and I think that has to be acknowledged. And while I understand that, the concerns over the fiscal sustainability of the TTC in terms of going with a no fare increase for the 3rd year and even implementing fare capping, I think we also live in the real world where most people in this city are struggling. If you talk to people outside of this room, yeah, it matters if you increase their fare, especially if they're paying for a family of 4. So while we're talking about it from an academic level, because we can all afford it, in fact, everyone at this table gets a free TTC pass, so it doesn't really affect us at all, but I really think we need to live in the real world where real people are struggling, and we want to make sure that the TTC remains accessible for people and that they can actually get to the opportunities that they want in order to take advantage of all the opportunities that Toronto has, whether that's cultural, educational, economic, whatever. So I support the fare freeze, and I'm glad that we are going with fare capping, because not only is fare capping the right thing to do in terms of our overall ridership growth strategy, it'll actually take cars off of the streets, which will help to deal with the congestion that's costing our economy billions of dollars. So I think this budget is a strong sort of further doubling down on the work that was started in the last year's budget in terms of really diving deep into the problems that are the TTC is facing, and sort of not just ignoring them and saying that, oh, we can't solve it, but actually like really going into the details and doubling down and seeing what we can do about bus bunching. You know, what we can do to make sure our stations are clean so that when people walk in them, they look presentable. What we can do to help new passengers navigate the system who maybe aren't as familiar with it. And I think there's a lot of good work that goes in this budget, and I'm very proud to support it. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions. Oh, speak? Sure. Does anybody have any questions, clarification of the motion? Thank you. Councillor Mallow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to speak first specifically to the budget. I also want to acknowledge the work of our staff, who I know putting together a budget like this is not easy. And it's especially not easy when we don't have enough money to do everything that we know we want to do and what we need to do. And that's why the creativity and the hard work should be acknowledged. Years ago, before the Mike Harris government, we had a partnership with the province of Ontario where 50% of our operating costs were met by a higher level of government. And that government walked away, and no government has ever come back. And we now have a system where we are reliant on various deals. I feel the same way. Ad hoc arrangements and announcements to be able to receive new funds for both capital and operating priorities. That's no way to run a railroad, so to speak. It's not sustainable. It's not predictable. It's not reliable. And because of that, that also reflects on the system itself. The more investment we can make into things that are not the most announceable things, like state of good repair, means that the average person won't have the same type of delays that they experience all the time. That we can invest into a safer TTC, a more reliable TTC. When you do that, then you increase ridership, which also then contributes to the financial sustainability of the system. We want people to choose the better way again, and as Chair Myers said quite rightly, the reason that I think it's very fair and reasonable for the City of Toronto to help supplement the budget, it's a shame that it has to, by the way. It's because everyone benefits from better transit. If you're a TTC rider, you benefit from better transit. If you're a car driver, the fewer people who are competing with you on the road means that your life is better now too. Everybody benefits. Everybody benefits from a more environmentally friendly city. Everyone benefits from a city that people and commerce can get around effectively. We all benefit when the TTC becomes the better way again. So I want to acknowledge the work that you've done to prepare this budget, and I also want to recognize the fact that the province of Ontario needs to get back in the business of funding the TTC adequately and fairly to support not only Torontonians who use it every day, but for residents around Ontario, including the GTHA, that use our transit system, their transit system, but we're the ones who are having to pick up the bill. I want to conclude by saying something about Jamal Myers that he humbly alluded to, but I want to just say this very clearly. We have a chair who is a first-term city councillor, and anyone would advise a first-term city councillor to do nothing but stay in their own ward and show up at every garage sale and shake hands with people. And he does that. I mean, he's an incredibly attentive local councillor, and I see the good work he does in his community, and he advocates for his community every single day that he's here. But he has also been personally obsessive with improving this transit system. I can't have a conversation with him about anything without it turning to what are we going to do something for the TTC. He lives it, he breathes it, he rides it, and he works for it. And I just want to acknowledge the leadership that you provided. And this isn't even a political speech, this is a personal speech, because I really am grateful, because I see it, and I just want to acknowledge that publicly. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so seeing no further speakers, we'll begin by voting on the motions, which the clerk will put on the screen. And these motions are to the 2026 TTC Conventional Wheel-Trans operating budgets. First motion by Councillor Sachs. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Second motion by myself. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. On the 2026 Conventional Wheel-Trans operating budget as amended, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. On the 2026 to 2035 Capital Budget and Plan, 15-year capital investment plan and real estate investment plan update, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. That concludes the business of this meeting. Can I please have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Bravo, thank you. All those in favor? Item carries and we are adjourned. Yeah, I like that. It's just... Why?
Just a quick question. All the commissioners here. You know how this process works. If you